Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. Gao Wu. People are being swallowed, and their clones are thrown into the world. Chapter 71. Virtual Space. Roundtable. The Supreme Meeting, which was originally held only twice a year, was held for the second time this month. And both times, it was for the same person. Everyone, I solemnly reiterate that this contract was drawn up by the owner of the museum himself. I solemnly reiterate that what Chen Fan wants is the SS-level Blood Shadow War Sword. The number is 99. Inspector Lu's tone was not calm, and he even gritted his teeth. He is a spiritual master, so he needs weapons to be more normal. Inspector Wang expressed his opinion. If he could use it. Another Inspector Zhu said, I have no objection. Among the gods of war, the Phantom Karen can only control up to 24 flying knives at the same time. The Black Inspector Vladimir said coldly. Vladimir, I think Karen is not as good as Chen Fan. Since the three inspectors have no objections, then give it to him. Give him. Elite Training Camp, Zhongyan Pavilion. Since the Elite Training Camp is located near the headquarters of the Extreme Martial Arts Gym, Chen Fan placed the order for weapons and combat uniforms and were delivered to them 1 hour after the roundtable meeting ended. Then, a big box. The box is made of mixed gold, 1.6 meters long, 1.4 meters wide, and 1.4 meters high. It is also specially equipped with 2 belt-like devices. It seems to be convenient for carrying out the door. Chen Fan, what's in this box? Seeing the transfer staff from the Extreme Martial Arts School, Zhao Ruo jumped down from the second floor and asked with curiosity on his face. Blood Shadow War Sword. Chen Fan picked up the Blood Shadow War gun and waved it briefly. Both the weight and texture are 100 times stronger than the A7 version. No wonder you only gave Teacher Yang 70 million as an errand fee. It turned out to be to buy an SS-level Blood Shadow battle gun. Zhao Ruo had sharp eyes and recognized at a glance that the Blood Shadow War gun in Chen Fan's hand was SS level. After all, the SS level easily costs 60 billion, and even a flying knife with the least materials costs more than 10 billion. A god of war with no background really can't afford such a weapon. 170 million. Chen Fan corrected him. Okay, 170 million. Zhao Ruo made a face at Chen Fan, then reached out to open the box and asked curiously, is your Blood Shadow War Sword also SS? Mom, this. When the box was opened, neat rows of SS-level Blood Shadow swords lay flat there, not at all luxurious or dazzling. But, all kidding aside, even if Zhao Ruo saw Hong Lai in Zhongyan Pavilion, he would not be able to call her mother. It's like an ordinary person opening a box of gold bars, the feeling is sour and refreshing. The end. Chen Fan added nonchalantly, yeah. Both. Zhao Ruo sad face 0. The next day, the students in the elite training camp are all ready to go, including Chen Fan from Zhongyan Pavilion. Early in the morning, 183 students gathered on the lawn in front of the Zhouzhong building. All the students were fully armed, carrying backpacks and their own weapons and chatting in small groups, because today was the departure day of the life and death adventure. But, before departure, everyone was waiting for someone. I never expected that the world's strongest man would actually come here. I've never met the head librarian before. I have been coming to the elite training camp for 3 years and I have only seen him once. Senior brother Shizhong, have you ever met the chief master? What is he really like? Zhao Ruo turned into a little fan girl at this time and asked Shizhong curiously. How to say? When Shizhong mentioned Hong, a look of reverence immediately appeared in his eyes. He is like a god. God. Zhao Ruo was stunned for a moment, as if Hong's fantasy appeared in front of his eyes. Junior sister, you should focus more on the upcoming life and death adventure now. Shizhong shook his head slightly and reminded, we are going to the Australian continent this year. After the Great Nirvana, the entire Australian continent will be a world of monsters, which is more dangerous than the African Eastern Sahara and the American Amazon. Before the Great Nirvana, the Australian continent had fewer people and more animals. After the Great Nirvana era, the entire Australian continent directly became a monster paradise. After decades of reproduction and evolution, the number of monsters there has become terrifying, making it one of the 3 most dangerous places in the world, along with the East Sahara in Africa and the Amazon in the Americas. The collective life and death adventure of the elite training camp is to travel to these 3 dangerous places. This time, the finalized address was mainland Australia. By the way, Chen Fan. Shi Zhong looked at Chen Fan curiously and said, I wanted to ask you this morning. Everyone carries backpacks to store their loot. Why do you need to carry a box? Where is his box? Upon hearing this, Zhao Ruo immediately came back to his senses, his eyes flashing with $. He is carrying a mountain of gold, worth 6 trillion. What do you mean? Shi Zhong was confused when he heard this. Single quote. At this time, a roaring sonic boom sounded in the sky, and when everyone looked up, a stream of red light streaked across the sky, coming from a distance with a long tail flame. Between the breaths, a vague shadow condensed, and it turned out to be a red triangular fighter plane. The owner is here. Get up quickly, the teachers urged, and all the students and teachers on the lawn stood up straight. The scene was spectacular. The fighter plane landed. Wow, the hatch opens. A yellow man and a black man stepped out of the cabin door at the same time, then descended into the sky and walked slowly to the grass. This scene made many students widen their eyes. Everyone thought that these 2 must be 2 of the 5 inspectors of the extreme martial arts school, existences that surpass the gods of war. Only, as soon as the 2 people appeared, they looked at one of the students almost at the same time, and even the corner of the yellow man's mouth twitched slightly. All the students and teachers glanced out of the corner of their eyes. The 2 inspectors were staring at Chen Fan. And that look, seemed, with a little resentment. They just can't allow them to think too much. A man in black trousers, a black coat, and short black hair stepped out. Almost all the students held their breath and looked at this godlike man, their eyes filled with intense heat and reverence. And the next moment, Hong took a step forward and arrived beside a student as if teleporting. Everyone turned around and saw the black-haired man, Hong, staring at Chen Fan. To be precise, he was staring at the box behind Chen Fan. Immediately, a faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. I'm very curious. Can you really control 99 SS level blood shadow swords? Hear this. Chen Fan was startled and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. All the students in the entire training camp were dumbfounded. SS level blood shadow sword. Still 99. Are you talking about Chen Fan's box? OMG. This guy actually went on an adventure carrying 99 war swords. Are you crazy? 6 trillion. So what kind of monster can you fight? Chen Fan can do it. Super big monster. Do not let me down. The black-haired man Hong had a smile on his face and seemed to be full of expectations for Chen Fan. Immediately, his eyes swept over the other students, and his voice became cold. You are all the most elite geniuses among young people in the world. Your goal is not to become the god of war, but to become a being that surpasses the god of war. I hope that some of you can reach this point. I hope you won't disappoint me. His words seemed to have infinite magic power, penetrating directly into the hearts of every student. Under this invisible guidance, everyone clenched their fists and their blood began to surge. Subsequently, Hong didn't stop at all, stepped into the prehistoric level smart fighter, and walked away. When Hong disappeared from everyone's sight, all the students and the God of War teacher were excited. It's too strong, the head gym leader is too strong. Just like a god, at that moment, I felt that the general manager was the master of the whole world of 130. That's right, oh my car, Dixashong, Gar, Disasika. This is the real invincible strong man. All students used their own languages and communicated excitedly with their compatriots. No wonder Chen Fan didn't attend the banquet. He's too rich, right? SS level weapons, 99, my god, how much does this cost? A big dog owner, definitely a big dog owner. Isn't the Jinghua Chen family a small family? Rather, it's a hidden family in our Kyushu kingdom. I suspect that the Blood Shadow series weapons we use are from his family. Many students from Jojo Kingdom marveled at Chen Fan. Not to mention the God of War, even those who surpass the God of War probably have a net worth of 5 trillion. At 9 a.m. that day, a passenger plane carrying nearly 200 people departed from the base city of Hongning and flew directly to the Australian mainland. This passenger plane has 3 floors, upper, middle and lower, with plenty of space. Chen Fan, Zhao Ruo and Shi Zhong were in the middle cabin together. Everyone has finished lunch, let's start preparing. A yellow god of war teacher pointed to the video in the cabin and said, today's Australian continent can be called the area with the most shockingly dense number of monsters on the world's land. Since the Australian continent is isolated from other landmasses in the world, the monsters here are different from the other continents. The monsters in other continents are different. There are many types and the density of monsters is one thing. Secondly, just because of the large number, there are a lot of king-level monsters. If you encounter a king-level monster now, you are almost certain to die. Remember, approach areas with a high concentration of monsters, especially areas with a large number of lord monsters. All the students listened carefully. Although they were geniuses, the strongest one was the god of war. The god of war faced a king-level monster and almost died with one push. Of course, most king-level monsters won't bother to pay attention to you unless you seek your own death. So, the biggest threats to you are the beast herds and lord-level monsters. The yellow teacher pointed at the video screen and tirelessly explained the situation across the Australian continent. Many students are watching carefully. Some first-year newcomers became more and more frightened as they watched. Chen Fan, senior brother Shi Zhang. Zhao Ruo, who was the weakest, glanced at the calm Chen Fan and Shi Zhang, who was full of fighting spirit, and asked in a low voice, let's form a team together in Australia. Hear the words. Shi Zhang frowned slightly and hesitated for a moment. His strength is much stronger than Zhao Ruo. This time on the Australian mainland is definitely an excellent training opportunity for him. If he takes Zhao Ruo with him, he will obviously be affected. Then he looked at Chen Fan and said, what does Chen Fan think? Looking at the current judgment of the elite training camp alone, Shi Yang's trial tower level is a little higher than Chen Fan's. But he knew very well that in terms of strength, ordinary war gods and spiritual masters were not at the same level at all. Okay, Chen Fan smiled. I don't know how to dissect a body anyway. You don't know how to do that. You are too lazy to dig out materials. Zhao Ruo glanced at Chen Fan's box and couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. Okay, then we, Zhongyan Pavilion, will explore one of the 3 most dangerous places in the world together. Hearing Chen Fan's promise, Shi Zhang immediately became excited. Suddenly, the entire cabin shook violently, and some students were caught off guard and thrown out of their seats. What happened? Zhao Ruo exclaimed. Many students also looked shocked. Dear students, a loud voice came from the cabin broadcast. Our passenger plane has flown into the Australian mainland, but it is still 20 minutes away from its destination. There are a huge number of monsters in Australia, including bird monsters. The passenger plane was attacked by bird monsters just now. There was an uproar in the cabin. They are all low-level bird monsters. Shi Zhang was experienced and explained with a smile. Particularly powerful monsters don't dare to get close to flying passenger planes. A passenger plane like ours equipped with an airborne laser cannon is enough to kill king-level monsters instantly. Soon, the plane landed, the door opened, and everyone quickly walked out of the passenger plane. This is a vast wilderness area covered in green, with extremely lush vegetation, much like a primeval forest. There are no urban buildings, it's desolate. It's troublesome to have a rest at night now, let's form a team and work together. Okay, help each other and go back alive. Novsky, what about you? After judging the situation, many students chose to form a group for the trial. All students, please remember to use your communicator to record the coordinates here. It is now January 31, 2057. Your mission is to live in the Australian mainland for 15 days. Our passenger flight will pick up all the students here on February 15, 2057 and return to the Hongning base city. After a god of war teacher finished speaking in Kyushu dialect, he repeated it in English. Now, your life and death adventure officially begins. Soon, all the god of war teachers quickly returned to the passenger plane, and as the passenger plane slowly took off, it left the Australian continent. There were only 183 students left in the wilderness. List. A voice sounded. I saw a white girl with long brown hair walking up to Chen Fan and the other 3, and asked in fluent Mandarin, you are the invincible god of war. We want to form a team with you and spend 15 days in Australia. As he spoke, the white girl pointed to another black girl behind her. Janet. Zhao Ruo raised his eyebrows. The 3 of us have already formed a team. No, I'm not asking you, I'm asking Chen. Janet completely ignored Zhao Ruo, her beautiful eyes fixed on Chen Fan's face. Chen, both of us are better than her. Zhao Ruo suddenly looked angry. But what Janet said is true. Although everyone rated him as a high-level warrior, Zhao Ruo's true strength was only a junior war god. As for Janet and the Black Rebecca, their points rankings are far ahead of Zhao Ruo, looking at the strength of the average god of war. No, Chen Fan smiled harmlessly and refused. Quote ? Janet seemed confused and her voice was much louder. He likes to get rich. Zhao Ruo on the side groaned. I'm afraid I'll kill you all accidentally. Otherwise, where do you think he got this box of weapons? When Chen Fan stepped into the Australian continent, he was an unknown number of kilometers underground. Inside the ornate metal hall, a child in black robe was floating in the air, dancing and murmuring. He's coming, he's coming, he's coming. If someone were here at this moment, they would be able to see through at a glance that this child in black robe is not a real person, but more like a spirit condensed in the virtual world. The other side, Chen Fan looked at Zhao Ruo with an innocent face. How do I know they will believe it? Zhao Ruo spread his hands, feeling a little aggrieved. After hearing Zhao Ruo's mindless excuse, many students in the elite training camp actually looked in awe and confusion, and then quickly left the landing point in groups of 2 or 3, as if they were afraid that they would be killed by Chen Fan. Among the students, only Chen Fan has killed the god of war. It's normal for them to be worried. Shi Zhang smiled and said, let's go too. Killing and seizing treasures often happen in the martial arts circle. Although the elite training camp order stipulates that students are prohibited from killing each other, but now in the deserted Australian continent, if you kill and push the monster, you will die without evidence. Soon, the 3 of them quickly passed through a small forest and landed at the foot of the mountains. Looking at the endless mountains, Shi Zhang opened the electronic map and said, the map shows that this mountain range is about more than 100 kilometers long. Should we choose to settle here temporarily, or continue to wander inland? Go southwest, go here. Chen Fan glanced at the map and discovered the location of Kirishima. Others don't know, but as a time traveler, he knows it clearly. Under this continent, there is an interstellar spacecraft that can travel across the universe, the meteorite layer. It can be said that it is one of the greatest opportunities on this planet. Listen to you. Shi Zhang and Zhao Ruo nodded at the same time. Although they were seniors, they seemed to be dominated by Chen Fan at the moment. With the strength of their 3-person team, as long as they don't encounter king-level monsters, there is almost no danger. But even if he encounters a king-level monster, Chen Fan may not be unable to fight. In the Europa region, in an ancient building with a long history. Here, it is the existence beyond the god of war, Yan Hai's lair. Now, he sat cross-legged in silence, making Zen gestures with one hand and fiddling with Buddhist beads with the other. He closed his eyes and did not look at the kneeling man in front of him. For a long time, he sighed softly and said, Little vulture, even if that Chen Fan is in Australia, I will never help you again. Hong's appearance had scared him out of his wits. So what if I can kill Chen Fan? Who on this planet can escape the wrath of flood? Senior Yan Hai, this Chen Fan is practicing so fast, if he breaks through and surpasses the god of war. Li Yao looked ferocious, and immediately sneered, do you think he will seek revenge on you? Hear the words. Yan Hai suddenly opened his eyes, feeling uncertain in the dark. After returning to Europa from City 003, he searched for information about Chen Fan. He became a warrior on August 1, 1956, and then made rapid progress. In just 4 months, he became a powerful god of war. Now he is favored by the world's #1 and enters the world's #1 training camp. With abundant resources, entering the planetary level is almost a certainty. And myself, it's worthy of the 2nd level of planetary level. Seeing Yan Hai's expression changing several times, Li Yao had a glimmer of hope in his eyes. He already knew that he was going to die when he attacked Chen Fan, but the revenge of killing his son was like a stick in his throat. If he didn't avenge this, he would have trouble sleeping and eating, and he would die in peace. A long time. Little vulture, that's all I can help you. Trademark. From now on, we will never have any friendship with each other. Yan Hai waved his hand, and a notebook with simple writing fell gracefully in front of Li Yao. But, it's nothing but, if he comes looking for bad luck, I'll admit my mistake at worst. When Chen Fan comes to find him, that would be beyond oneself. It is not a big deal to bow to the strong and admit your mistakes. Yan Heru thought. Mountain range in the central hinterland of the Australian continent. Whoosh! Shi Zhang dodged quickly, his sword flashed, and chopped off a powerful monkey belonging to a high-level beast general. Come over here quickly. After dealing with the powerful monkey on the mountain call, Zhao Ruo shouted and waved, down below, the monkey's nest. Hearing the sound, Chen Fan and Shi Zhang jumped up and went to the edge of the cliff to look down into the canyon below. The steep slope of the canyon winds down, and for almost several kilometers, there are densely packed ape-like monsters. At first glance, there are nearly 10,000 of them. Three-headed lord monster. One of them is a senior lord. Shi Yang's eyes flashed. Chen Fan, do it or not. He is one of the top 10 students in the elite training camp with stable points, and his strength is stronger than ordinary high-level gods of war. This trip is to hone one's own strength. It's rare to poke a monster in the nest, how can you not be excited? Discuss tactics. Zhao Ruo looked at the three major lords and the overlapping monkeys and couldn't help but ask. Leave it to me, High Lord. Chen Fan's eyes were like lightning. After saying a word, he suddenly turned into a white figure and shot down from the sky, trampling directly on the body of a high-level beast general. Bang! He was now using his strength to every part of his body. After trampling it, the high-level beast exploded his entire body, causing flesh and blood to fly everywhere. The sudden attack caused the entire ape group to instantly riot. Dong dong dong. The three-headed lords immediately beat their chests with their hands and looked up to the sky, letting out bursts of roars. Next moment, a large number of beast-level apes acted like generals, leading more beast-soldier-level apes to frantically surround and kill Chen Fan. Be careful. Seeing this scene, Shi Zhang asked Zhao Ruo, and his body was like the wind, and he quickly slashed down the winding mountain road. Every time he swung his knife, a piece of blood was rolled up. Two lunatics. Zhao Ruo cursed, holding a knife in one hand and a shield in the other, and followed Shi Yang's route. Kill. Chen Fan's body was so fast and fierce that his SS-level blood shadow gun was like a blood dragon emerging from the sky, sweeping across the group of apes. The bodies of the ape monsters were cut off one after another. Their heads flew around, blood spilled wildly, and their limbs were severed like a violent storm. Ups and downs. In the blink of an eye, looking down from a high place, the word, written in blood appeared directly in the huge valley, which was horrifying and terrifying. Wherever Chen Fan passed, there was a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. So strong. Shi Zhang also rushed into the herd of beasts to kill, but his efficiency was much slower than Chen Fan. This is too perverted. When Zhao Ruo rushed down, within tens of meters in front of him, gurgling blood had gathered into streams, and corpses were piled up like mountains. In the blink of an eye, less than 1,000 apes were killed by Chen Fan's gun. Roar! At this moment, the senior Lord Titan giant ape in the center finally couldn't help it. He angrily grabbed a boulder like a hill and threw it at Chen Fan. Break! The boulder was as thick as a meteorite falling. Chen Fan swept his eyes, and his feet suddenly exerted force. He was like a rocket in the sky, and he shot up instantly. The blood shadow war gun in his hand suddenly shot out, and the boulder shattered. Sword rises. Chen Fan jumped up in the air, his mental strength at full strength, and a blood shadow sword suddenly flew out of the box behind him and slid to his feet as if he had a spiritual sense. Humanity. It is also the most special kind among human beings. When the Titan ape saw this scene, his eyes were filled with coldness. Boom! It vibrated under its feet, and its almost 10-meter-long body suddenly jumped into the air, roaring and rushing towards Chen Fan. When Chen Fan saw the Titan ape coming towards him and entering the range covered by his mental power, Chen Fan suddenly raised his head and smiled, "You're just in time. Go." As Chen Fan spoke out, the terrifying sound of swords suddenly resounded from the box he was carrying behind him. Buzz. The Titan giant ape knew that the human in white in front of him was the most special kind of human being. Even though he was prepared for it, his pupils suddenly shrank when he saw the layers of red light shooting out from the boxes behind Chen Fan. That moment, it even recalled many years ago, when humans still lived in this continent. On a certain day, they will set off something called fireworks. Another one of them is called Sky Monkey. Phew, phew, phew. Whoosh, whoosh, call out. 18 SS level blood shadow swords are like red lightning, instantly striking the Titan ape's head. Who? The Titan ape's huge right arm suddenly waved away, and Teke's palm smashed over like a mountain. At the same time, a sonic explosion exploded. Puff puff. There were 18 piercing sounds in succession. Even with the physical strength of the senior lord, the Titan giant ape, his palm was pierced by the SS-level blood shadow sword, and pale golden blood sprayed out. Ouch! Huge pain passed into his heart, and the Titan ape's anger surged, and he roared with extreme anger. Immediately, he swung his left arm suddenly, turning into an afterimage and shooting at Chen Fan. Next moment, the Titan ape's eyes shrank sharply again, and there was even a hint of fear. Because it sees. The bloody sword that stabbed him was shot out of a strange box in a steady stream. This time, there are a total of 24 handles. Shoo, shoo, call out, who? The Titan giant ape endured the severe pain and waved continuously like lightning unwillingly, trying to kill Chen Fan in midair. The terrifying sound of the gas explosion made other apes almost tinnitus, and even the impact of the palm wind directly sent some low-level apes flying into the hillside. Suddenly, the rocks rolled down, forming a vague landslide. Many apes were directly knocked down by boulders. And Chen Fan stepped on the flying sword, drawing strange arcs in the air, like an erratic white stream of light. It's really different. Chen Fan's figure whirled, his eyes moving. When the other 18 SS-level blood shadow swords fell, they suddenly let out a chorus. Then, he stabbed the monkeys in a staggered manner. Whoosh! Zhao Ruo waved his long sword at this moment, and after slashing open the two high-level beast generals that were attacking, the giant palm of the junior lord, the powerful demon ape, had suddenly struck. Not good. The huge beast's palm blocked the light, and it was like the call of death pressing towards Zhao Ruo. You will be seriously injured even if you don't die. Zhao Ruo's face darkened, his beauty immediately turned pale, and he waved his six-edged shield to the limit to shoulder it. Phew, phew, call out. From one side, 3 red streams of light were almost like lightning, piercing through the arm of the powerful demon ape without fail. The huge momentum forced its attack to deviate from the position and crashed into Zhao Ruo 6 meters away. Boom! It's like a meteorite falling to the ground and exploding. Chen Fan, thank you. Zhao Ruodeng immediately felt like he was surviving a disaster. He raised his head and thanked her, his beautiful eyes shrank sharply, and there was a look of horror on his face. Okay, there are so many. Midair, there were actually 30 or 40 blood shadow swords surrounding it, which was completely beyond her knowledge of spiritual masters. Everyone knows that Chen Fan is very strong, but how strong he is not defined. And now, Zhao Ruo is not the only one who has this idea. The Titan ape was already covered in blood, and when he saw more and more bloody swords, his giant pupils opened wide. Although he was unwilling to do so, he suddenly turned around and decisively chose to run away. My mental power is really different. Chen Fan is also trying. He had never controlled such a number of blood shadow swords, but he found that even if he controlled dozens of blood shadow swords at the same time, it was still effortless. In fact, he is not a so-called spiritual master. The strength of his spiritual power depends entirely on the Sea of Consciousness, also known as the Domain. Within the scope of the Consciousness Sea domain, not to mention the 99 blood shadow war swords, even if there were 10 times more, with the strength of his soul that had been fused 10 times, it might not be impossible to control them. Can you escape? Chen Fan's eyes were cold, staring at the running Titan ape, and sneered, go. He gave the order. The blood shadow swords floating around suddenly shot away as if hearing the king's pardon order. Whoop, whoosh, call out, roar. No matter how fast the senior lord is, he can't compare with the blood shadow sword shooting out. The Titan ape let out a roar of death, and while hurriedly avoiding it, it also tried to kill Chen Fan. But, there are so many blood shadow swords, and they are impossible to avoid at speeds exceeding 10 times the speed of sound. Only the sound of puff, puff, and puff was heard, and the blood shadow war sword shot towards the Titan ape's head one after another, like water dripping through stone. The red light and light golden blood blended together, rendering an extremely strange scene. In just a few seconds, the Titan ape's skull was forcibly pierced, and its huge body could not even withstand the force of the impact. When it collapsed, its body rolled nearly 100 meters with inertia, crushing many other apes to death. Monster. Boom boom. As soon as the Titan ape fell, the other gibbon demon ape was also distracted for a moment. Xizong found a flaw. His figure jumped up instantly, and the long knife was like a gust of wind and rain, and he slashed at the neck of the gibbon demon ape in an instant. Dozens of knives. Blood spurted out like a shot. Yeah. The two lord monsters fell down, and the powerful demon ape that was fighting Zhao Ruo let out a cry of terror, bounced with great force, and hit the forest on the other side, causing the trees and vegetation to fall sideways. Running for his life. When the other apes saw this, they screamed, "Bah!" and dispersed like birds and beasts. What's wrong? Soon, there was not a single living ape in the huge canyon. Zhao Ruo sat down on an ape corpse, his chest heaving and breathing heavily. If it weren't for Chen Fan's flying sword just now, she might have gone to get the lunchbox right now. Chen Fan. As soon as Xizong put away his sword, he also discovered Chen Fan's terror just now, and couldn't help but said in shock, "I didn't expect you to be able to control dozens of flying swords at the same time. Apart from you, it seems that only a being who surpasses the god of war can do it." Maybe. Chen Fan jumped up and fell from midair, his eyes moved slightly. A blood shadow war sword returned to the alloy box in an orderly manner, like a tired bird returning home, neatly arranged layer by layer. "This scene is awesome," the two of them exclaimed again. Shi Yang's communicator lit up. "Is it Lu Zheng?" Xizong answered the phone, and Lu Yang's voice came from the communicator, "Brother Xizong, something happened. Are you with Chen Fan?" "Looking for Chen Fan, can you contact me?" Xizong was a little depressed. "Senior brother Xizong." Zhao Ruo on the side regained consciousness, rolled his eyes and said, "We are the only students in the entire elite training camp who have Chen Fan's contact information." And indeed it is. When Chen Fan arrived at the elite training camp, he had no interaction with other students. The warrior's contact information is registered, but Chen Fan usually doesn't go to the extreme house at all, otherwise the males would not pile up to 99 plus. "We are with Chen Fan, what happened?" Xizong asked without hesitation. "We found the plant spirit near an island, but the plants here were so powerful that even Lamad and Simon died." Lu Zheng said with lingering fear, "William and the others are also contacting other people. Senior brother Chu Chang asked me to contact you and Chen Fan. Let's join forces in Jojo to hear it again." The spirit of vegetation. When Xizong heard these 4 words, his expression suddenly changed. "Lu Zheng, are you sure you are the spirit of vegetation?" "Okay, the coordinates have been sent to you. What is the spirit of vegetation?" Zhao Ruo, who was on the side, saw Shi Yang's expression change suddenly and couldn't help but curiously asked, "Chen Fan, do you know?" Chen Fan nodded slightly, thought for a while and said, "Let's put it this way, after taking the high-level god of war, there is a high probability that he will be able to break through." 460 inches what? Zhao Ruo almost jumped up, and the tone of his voice changed. "After taking the high god of war, can it break through the existence of the god of war? This thing, it's simply a priceless treasure. You know, how many existences in the world surpass the god of war in total? Call, Chen Fan, since you know the spirit of plants and trees, I don't need to explain more." At this time, Xizong hung up Lu Zheng's call, turned to Chen Fan, took a deep breath and said, "Students have already contacted the forces behind it, and I believe that all forces will send people over soon. When the time comes, we will no longer have a share in this spirit of vegetation. Senior brother Chu Chang means that we students from Jojo will join forces, and if we can get some grass and tree spirits, according to the distribution system of the training camp, we can all share a part. If the number is large, maybe you can get one." Shi Yang's eyes were filled with deep desire. Although his strength can stabilize the top 10 in the elite training camp, there is still little hope of breaking through and surpassing the god of war. At the same time, it is also very clear that with Chu Chang's ability to stabilize the top 3 in the elite training camp, he has to find someone to join forces. It is not easy to get this spiritual world of grass and trees. Plan the materials first, don't leave the money behind. Chen Fan nodded. Lamad and Simon are both stronger than me. They, CAFG, are both dead. If I go, I will only hold you back. At this time, Zhao Ruo said, I won't go with you. She is self-aware, and it's okay to mess with monsters, but the value of the spirit of plants and trees is too great. Even if Chen Fan and Shi Zhang are willing to take her, others will definitely have objections. After all, if you don't have the strength, how can you get a share? Shi Zhang hesitated for a moment and looked at Chen Fan. What are you thinking about? Chen Fan smiled slightly and said, the three of us are a team. Chen Fan, I know you have good intentions. Zhao Ruo expressed gratitude and said, but I. Zhao Ruo, Shi Zhang said, you can leave my mother-in-law alone, or the three of us can break in together. Zhao Ruo was far less aware of the strength of the top-ranked students than Shi Zhang. Shi Zhang knew very well that with Chen Fan's mental control, even Chu Chang, who was ranked among the top 3, probably wouldn't be able to survive a few rounds. Afterwards, Shi Zhang and Zhao Ruo quickly dissected the materials. Chen Fan compared the coordinates sent by Lu Zheng and found that the location happened to be near Kirishima, which further confirmed his idea. Soon, the trio quickly headed towards Kirishima. The other side, Europa region, Paris base city. In a spacious spire hall, there are 5 chairs all black with complex carvings on the black marble floor. And at this moment, sitting on these 5 seats were 4 old men and an old lady. They are the real core of power of the Bolinas family. Candace is a good boy. He notified the family as soon as he discovered the arithmetic spirit. The silver-haired old man sitting in the main seat said with a smile, this credit will be recorded for him. I heard that Chen Fan is also in mainland Australia. How should we deal with him if we meet him? Another blonde old lady wielded a gilt crutch, with a hint of coldness on her wrinkled face. Venina is a descendant of her lineage. I believe our Catalia will handle it well. The blurred eyes of the silver-haired old man on the main seat suddenly brightened. They are coming. At this time, I saw a mysterious man wearing a black robe and a black hat walking into the hall step by step. Behind him, to the left and right, were a large man with a shield and a lean man carrying 2 swords at his waist. As soon as the 3 people appeared, the entire hall felt an inexplicable sense of oppression. The leading man in black robe slowly raised his eyes. His eyes were extremely deep, as if penetrating endless darkness. This moment, even the 5 core elders of the Bolinas family all stood up to greet the 3 powerful men. Catelyn, the best child of my Bolinas family. The old man who controls the entire Bolinas family looked at the black-robed man kindly and said in a begging tone, this time I can only ask you to take action in person. Uncle, after receiving your news, I brought my 2 friends here as soon as possible. The leader of the black-robed man bowed slightly, Giant Bear Kata, Blood Shadow Ivan. The 2 of them also bowed slightly as a courtesy. Sorry to bother you 2. The silver-haired old man smiled and said, Catelyn, do you need anyone else's help? No need, the plant monster that can give birth to the spirit of vegetation is not weaker than the high god of war. Catelyn, the man in black robe, said disdainfully, no matter how many war gods in the clan go there, they will end up dead. And one more thing. According to Candace's news, Chen Fan, who is known as the invincible god of war, is also on the Australian mainland at the moment. The silver-haired old man still reminded him, he is someone who is valued by Hong. As long as I don't kill him, Catelyn said indifferently. These words were said with great arrogance. He was an invincible god of war with 1 against 5. If anyone else had said this, the 5 old men would have sneered at him. But if it was Catelyn who was speaking, it would be completely different. Before Chen Fan became famous, Catelyn was recognized as the invincible god of war. Even Puka, Hong's direct disciple, was no match for Catelyn. Because he is also a spiritual master. Moreover, he is also the spiritual teacher of the high god of war. The Bolinas family has been able to secure its core position in the HR alliance even though there is no existence beyond the god of war. The main reason is because of the existence of the phantom demon, Catelyn. Once he makes a leap in life and breaks through to an existence that surpasses the god of war, his strength will probably be among the top 10 in the world. Just for a moment, a black flying saucer-type fighter jet quickly took off from the Paris base city, shooting straight into the southern sky like a black meteor. At the same time, fighter planes have set off from Kyushu, Phaidong, Sioux, India and other regions, and their destinations are all the Australian mainland. The other side. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Chen Fan, Shi Zhong and Zhao Ruo quickly came to Wudao Island to join Chu Cheng and Lu Zheng. Junior brother Chen Fan, junior brother Shi Zhong, and junior sister Zhao Ruo are also here. Chu Cheng was very strong. When he saw the three people coming, he laughed. Senior brother Chu Cheng, junior brother Lu Zheng. Shi Zhong and Zhao Ruo also saluted, looked not far away, and found that a group of students from the Europa region were also here, including William and Candace. Even Janet and Dr. Reba were also there. This is the situation. There are 9 willow-like vegetation spirits on the island in front of you. Chu Cheng pointed to the island shrouded in clouds and mist, and said with lingering fear, those 8 willow trees are easy to deal with, but their attack power is not strong. But one of them is the king of willows, with unparalleled vines and extremely tough vines. Once entangled, even I will definitely die. Lamad and Simon were strangled to death by the Willow King. Lu Zheng on the side added. His strength is also an average god of war, not as strong as Lamad and Simon. Fortunately, Chu Cheng protected him and escaped with his life. Chen Fan, what do you think? After Shi Zhong finished listening, he asked Chen Fan who was thinking about it. The fact that you are able to come out alive shows that the Willow King's strength has not surpassed that of the god of war. Chen Fan pondered for a moment, ignoring the expressions of Chu Cheng and Lu Zheng, and smiled slightly. Then, let's first see how the 8 herbal spirits are distributed. Brother Chen Fan is sure. Chu Cheng's eyes lit up, and his brothers all called out, I only need 1 tree. He has watched Chen Fan's battle videos, and his overall strength is better than him. The most important thing is that, facing Willow King's dense cane entanglement, the spiritual master's advantage is much stronger. Can I have 1? Lu Zheng looked at Chen Fan hesitantly. Okay. After all, it was Lu Zheng who informed Shi Zhong. Chen Fan nodded. I am responsible for dealing with the Willow King, and you deal with the spirit of the grass and trees. Good. The 5 people quickly reached unity. Chu Cheng, let's work together to try again. At this time, William from the far side came over. We will not join forces with those who abandon our teammates. Chu Cheng refused with a cold voice. William looked ugly. Before Chen Fan and others arrived, a dozen people broke through once, leaving 2 bodies behind. Chu Cheng knew very well that the Willow King was rooted inside and could not move at all. If Candace and others tried to save them, Lamad and Simon might not die. Pity. When disaster strikes, we all fly away. This is human nature. Everyone, be careful. The fog on this island is extremely thick and the field of vision is very narrow. There might be some other monsters. Under the leadership of Chu Cheng, the 5 people jumped onto Kirishima and followed the route they had just escaped. Candace, what now? Watching Chen Fan and others enter Kirishima, William asked hurriedly. That is a priceless treasure that can increase breakthroughs and surpass the god of war. Just watching helplessly like this would make anyone look like an ant on a hot pot. Humph, I don't believe they can succeed. Candace snorted coldly, and immediately the communicator lit up, and his eyes suddenly lit up. They will be here in 30 minutes. Even if Chu Cheng and the others get the spirit of vegetation, they can't take it away. Candace is particularly confident about the genius in her family. Soon, Chen Fan and the other 5 were standing about 100 meters away from the 9 willow trees. At a glance, they saw the bodies of 2 students lying under the middle willow tree. Chen Fan. Chu Cheng pointed to the willow tree next to the 2 corpses and said, Look, the core tree is the king of willows. Its pale golden willow branches are enough to cover other willow trees, so we can't do anything to capture the spirit of the grass and trees alone. After Chen Fan observed carefully, he found that the light golden willow branches were wrapped around the main trunk and said, I will try it first, and you can take advantage of the opportunity to deal with the other 8 willow trees. Okay, be careful. Chu Cheng held up both swords and entered combat mode. Chen Fan, tens of millions. Shi Zhong, Zhao Ruo and Lu Zheng are also waiting for danger. Whoosh! I saw Chen Fan holding the Blood Shadow war gun, dodged, and instantly pulled out afterimages of his body and rushed towards the Willow King. The speed was so fast that he covered a distance of nearly 100 meters in an instant. When he was approaching the Willow King suddenly attacked. A large number of overwhelming branches flew towards Chen Fan frantically, and each pale golden willow branch spiraled down from the main trunk and pierced him. Kill! Chen Fan jumped up, spun 720 degrees in the air, and suddenly shot out a willow tree. The ordinary willow tree branches were instantly shattered into pieces. The willow tree king seemed to realize the power of the human being in front of him, and more light golden willow branches came over. A critical moment. Facing the pale golden willow branch that was pulled out in an instant, Chen Fan jumped into the air again, and with a critical strike, a red light erupted, slamming down with a huge force of nearly 400 tons, and suddenly collided with the pale golden willow branch. I saw that the first 3 pale golden branches quickly retracted after shattering, and when the 4th branch was reached, it could only break open with cracks. No wonder they can't deal with it. Chen Fan has a clear look. The power of the crucible increases sharply by 2.7. With Chen Fan's current physical fitness, a juncture blow is no less than the full burst of a high-level god of war. Moreover, he is equipped with an SS-level Blood Shadow war gun, which is enough to pierce the weapons of king-level monsters. This was the only crack that broke the 3 pale golden willow branches. At a glance, there are hundreds of branches at least. Even if the senior gods of war are allowed to cut them, they will be exhausted. After being traumatized, the Willow King seemed to be angry, with branches from all directions winding around Chen Fan crazily. Do it! When Chu Chang saw the branches of the King of Willow Trees curling up towards Chen Fan, he immediately shouted and turned into a stream of light, killing the outermost willow tree. Shi Zhong, Zhao Ruo and Lu Zheng followed closely behind and worked together to kill one tree first. And at this moment, facing the overwhelming pale golden willow branches, Chen Fan stepped on it, and the energy and blood all over his body suddenly surged, and his mental strength was instantly boosted. The red light of the Blood Shadow war gun in his hand soared and even made a trembling sound. The true meaning of the sword. The force of his feet surged forward, and his body strength gathered together with his arms. When Chen Fan suddenly shot out, the burst of red light was like a blood dragon, destroying the cage surrounded by pale golden branches. In an instant, broken branches were flying in the sky. Whoosh! The branches that originally wanted to attack others were withdrawn. The willow tree owner was angry. Thousands of pale golden branches flew wildly, surrounding Chen Fan from all directions. Rise! The box behind Chen Fan opened, and a Blood Shadow war sword cut through the pale golden branches, held it at his feet, spun it, and fired another shot. Bang! Boom! Chen Fan faced the main trunk of the Willow Tree King directly, and it could not move. It could only block it with light golden branches, and then slapped Chen Fan from the left and right. Boom! Boom! Red sword light continued to shoot out from the alloy box, like satellites orbiting the Earth, constantly surrounding Chen Fan, forming red sword arrays. Every pale golden willow branch that was drawn around was knocked away by the Blood Shadow war sword. Break! Chu Chang slashed violently with both swords at this moment, directly tearing open the main trunk of a willow tree. After seizing the first plant spirit, he raised his eyes and it was as if he saw an electric-sized red ball constantly crushing towards the Willow King. As expected of the invincible god of war, he can actually control more than a dozen SS-level swords to such a fine degree. When Chu Chang saw this scene, he couldn't help but gasp, thousands of branches can't even get close to him. Soon, Chu Chang and the 4 of them were familiar with each other and quickly captured the spirit of 5 buildings. And this time, Chen Fan also broke through the covering of pale golden wicker, his eyes soared, open. The realm of heaven and earth was suppressed instantly. Not only Willow King, but also Chu Chang, Zhao Ruo and others felt their bodies sink instantly, their expressions suddenly changed, and they didn't know what happened for a while. The true meaning of the sword. Chen Fan let out a low scold, and struck the willow field with a force of more than 1,000 tons with a bang from the Blood Shadow war gun in his hand. Boom! The attack exploded, shaking the earth, and a gap of more than 10 meters opened in the main trunk of the Willow King. The main trunk was injured, and the pale golden branches that were wildly wrapped around Chen Fan shrank rapidly. It was obvious that the Willow King's vitality was declining. You can actually withstand my blow. Chen Fan was also a little surprised. With the blessing of the domain, his strike must have exceeded 1,000 tons. Even a planet-level powerhouse may not be able to have such terrifying power. To know the explosion of sword truth is 9 times as simple as that. With the blessing of the heaven and earth realm and the concentration of spiritual power, it is more than 10 times as simple as that. But Willow King can still pull him down. But Chen Fan's eyes narrowed, and the blood shadow war gun in his hand once again erupted with terrifying red light. A critical moment. Shake the earth. Genshin. The true meaning of the sword. Boom, boom, boom. With a violent blow, the entire Willow King was knocked down by Chen Fan. With a huge roar, the towering Willow King was cut off. 10,000 years of Willow Wood Heart. As soon as the Willow King fell, Chen Fan's mental power immediately discovered an oval crystal the size of a fist. There was a touch of green flowing in the crystal, and there was also a hint of light gold. Just looking at it with the naked eye can make people feel nervous. Chen Fan's eyes moved, and his mental power immediately flew to him with Wanyan Lu Muxin in his hand. With this thing, I can break through the planetary level without putting it in. Chen Fan smiled and put the 10,000 years Willow Wood Heart into the inner pocket of his combat uniform. Boom. At this time, the last willow tree was cut down by Chu Chang. Haha, we succeeded. Lu Zheng was extremely excited. He looked at the fallen Willow King and danced excitedly. Chen Fan, you are so powerful, you even killed the Willow King. From now on you will be my idol, Lu Zheng. Chen Fan. Lu Zheng, please be more serious. Seeing his brother dancing, Chu Chang was quite helpless. Here are the spirits of 6 plants and trees. Chu Chang handed a backpack to Chen Fan and said with emotion, I heard before that brother Chen Fan's amplitude is more than 30 years old. It doesn't seem to be a rumor. Now is not the time to talk about that. Chen Fan glanced at the sky, and a black stream of light came through the sky, and soon everyone heard the roar. The expressions of several people changed, and I don't know which force arrived first. And just when Catalia of the Bolinas family arrived at Kirishima, a purple-red triangular fighter plane was crossing the ocean at an incredible speed. There were only 2 people in the fighter plane. One of them is handsome and looks like he is in his 30s. However, his eyes were quiet and deep, and there was always a slight smile at the corner of his mouth, making him appear calm and relaxed. He is one of the 5 inspectors who approved 99 SS-level blood shadow swords to Chen Fan, Lu He. Even you are taking action this time. It seems that the owner of the museum attaches great importance to this garden island. Inspector Liu He looked at the man next to him who was also wearing combat uniforms. His identity is even more mysterious to the outside world. He is one of the legendary 3 personal guards of Hong, nicknamed Bingshan. It's not easy for Kirishima to be able to give birth to the spirit of grass and trees and the king of willow trees. Bingshan wore a golden mask and his voice was very low, but you don't have to worry, I won't take action unless necessary. Once I take action, according to the rules of the martial arts school, you and I need to share the 60-70 share equally. According to the rules of the Extreme Martial Arts Hall, members who discover treasures can get 10% of the total harvest, while combatants share 30% equally, and the remaining 60% is distributed by the Extreme Martial Arts Hall. If Bingshan doesn't take action, then Liu He will exclusively own the 30%. Haha, I really don't believe there is anything on that island that I can't settle. When Liu He heard this, he smiled and said, he is an existence that surpasses the god of war. He has many methods. Looking at the whole world, there are very few places where he can be defeated. Australian mainland, outside Kirishima. I saw a black fighter plane hovering in the sky. The cabin door opened, and 3 figures looked like graceful swallows, jumping gracefully from the fighter plane. Catelyn, seeing the visitor, Candace immediately greeted him with flattery. The expressions of the other elite training camp students changed slightly, and the muscles on their faces could not help but beat. It's actually him, Catalan the Phantom. No wonder Candace looks so confident. Alas, the spirits of vegetation have nothing to do with us. A high-ranking god of war and a psychic master, I guess that Chen Fan is no match for him. The battle inside is over. It's a pity that the bamboo basket was in vain. Chen Fan made the wedding dress for someone after all. Seeing the arrival of the phantom demon Catalan, many students expressed deep regret for Chen Fan who had fought so hard. No, it's hard for them to succeed. After the battle, Candace's expression immediately changed, and he said in fluent English, Catelyn, the spirit of grass and trees is inside. Before you come, Chen Fan, Chu Chang and the others break in 3. Maybe we've already succeeded. Chen Fan. Catalan's eyes narrowed slightly. The name he heard the most recently was this name, let's go. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Seeing Catalan entering, Candace, William and other students could not hold back their curiosity and followed him in. Inside Kirishima, it was a mess, with broken branches and willows everywhere. Coming, Chen Fan took the backpack containing 6 grass and tree spirits and threw it into the alloy box and said, Senior brother Shizhong, senior sister Zhao Ruo, let's go out and distribute the grass and tree spirits. Good. Shizhong and Zhao Ruo nodded at the same time. Catalya the Phantom. Chu Chang glanced around and saw the leader of the black-robed man. His face suddenly darkened and he whispered, Chen Fan, he is also a spiritual master and a high-level war god. Shizhong, Zhao Ruo, and Lu Zheng also looked over with changed expressions. I saw 3 human warriors flashing not far away, followed by a group of elite training camp students from the Europa region. When they saw the 9 willow trees and the Willow King being chopped down, the expressions on their faces changed several times, and they even flashed over in shock. A hint of greed. Those who know the truth, hand over the spirit of the plants and trees. Before Catalan could speak, William shouted first. William, are you threatening us? Chu Chang's voice was cold and his eyes were cold and stern. William shrank his neck and hid behind the students. The students in the elite training camp all know that Chu Chang joined the Kyushu army a year ago, and there is nothing wrong with shouting, but they really don't dare to do anything to Chu Chang. Even Catalan is the same. No family can withstand the wrath of the military of a great country. You can take 5 plant spirits and leave. Catalan's eyes were deep, and after scanning Chu Chang, Shizhong and others, they finally landed on Chen Fan, who was wearing a white combat uniform. Are you Chen Fan? While talking, Catalan's eyes narrowed, and an invisible spiritual force rushed out. The moment Chen Fan looked at him, it seemed as if a special power penetrated his eyes and struck his soul, trying to make his consciousness fall into trance. Only, how powerful his soul was, when this invisible force struck, it was instantly melted and swallowed up like a mud cow entering the sea. Cough, cough. Catalan's expression changed suddenly, and after coughing several times in succession, he said, there must be more than 9 plant spirits on this island. Let's look for them elsewhere. Walk, say it. Catalan glanced at Keita and Ivan next to him. The 3 of them had experienced countless battles with each other, and one look was enough to make each other understand. Whizzing, whoosh, the 3 powerful men, Catalan the Phantom, Ivan the Blood Shadow, and Keita the Giant Bear, ducked out of the way almost at the same time and quickly left towards the depths of Kirishima.0. William was immediately stunned. Candace was also dumbfounded. All the students in the elite training camp were as confused as Monk Jong-er. What's the situation? Are you scared away by the name Chen Fan? Isn't that the case? This is the Phantom Catalan. Not only them, but also Chu Chang, Shizhong, Zhao Ruo and Lu Zheng were a little incredible. Worry about them but not worry about Catalan. With so many students around, Catalan doesn't dare to kill him, but it's normal for him to get into a fight or be robbed of the spirit of plants and trees. But now, it was completely beyond their expectations. After galloping for several kilometers, Catalan saw that no one was chasing him, and he breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he is not as murderous as the rumors say. Catalan, why don't we grab it? Blood Shadow Ivan frowned and asked, did you just? That's right. Catalan looked a little ugly, but he had to admit, my phantom eye is a purely mental attack. With one blow, that Chen Fan was not only motionless, but also slightly injured me. His mental power is stronger than mine. The giant bear Keita asked. The 3 of us join forces. It's worth fighting for the spirit of vegetation. Blood Shadow Ivan's eyes were filled with greed. It's useless. But Catalan shook his head. This Chen Fan's mental power is at least that of a high-level god of war, and may even be the peak of a high-level god of war. He has already touched the threshold of surpassing the god of war. For such a spiritual master, there are many people who can use 2.2 physical equipment. Remember, don't provoke him. He is the true invincible god of war. Hear the words. Blood Shadow Ivan and Giant Bear Keita both took a breath of air and nodded solemnly. Invincible god of war. It is just a respectful title given to the powerful god of war by the outside world. Catalan also has an extremely high status in the circle of God of War. Many gods of war honor him as the invincible god of war. But Catalan himself knew that although his physical fitness had reached the peak of a high-level god of war, his mental power had always remained at the peak of a middle-level god of war and could not break through. Let's hurry up and find the spirit of vegetation, and then leave immediately in a fighter plane. Catalan was sure that this foggy island was so big that there would be more than just a few grass and tree spirits at the entrance. It will be difficult to do it after my teacher and the others come over. Good. Blood Shadow Ivan and Giant Bear Kata were not entangled, and the three of them quickly headed towards the island. Chen Fan, what happened just now? Catalan ran away inexplicably. Everyone looked puzzled. Zhao Ruo asked curiously. Hear the words. Chen Fan said with a smile. Maybe he is afraid that I will kill him. Everyone. 0. That is Catalanye, the spiritual master of the high god of war. Who among the gods of war can kill him? But no matter what, it is obvious that Catalan is afraid of Chen Fan. What now? Do we want to explore further? Shi Zhang asked. Catalan is here, and I believe that strong men from all forces will arrive one after another. Chu Cheng said in a deep voice. The Willow King on the outside is so terrifying. If we go deeper, it may be difficult to come out alive. Chu Cheng is self-aware. Although he has the strength of a high-level god of war, it is obvious that even a high-level god of war cannot handle the situation he is currently facing. 2. Shi Zhang and Zhao Ruo looked at each other and said, Chen Fan, we won't go in. Good. Chen Fan didn't show any pretense. He glanced into the depths of Kirishima, took out the backpack containing the spirit of vegetation and threw it to Shi Zhang and said with a smile, hide the spirit of vegetation well. If anyone strong asks, just tell me. On your body. Ah, Zhao Ruo's tone paused, and he saw Chen Fan's figure flashing rapidly, 20 like a white light shooting into the depths of Kirishima. Brother Chen Fan is right. Once a being beyond the god of war comes, even the Chen Fan brothers may not be able to preserve the spirit of the vegetation. Chu Cheng reminded. Only when the top management of the martial arts gym comes over will we be truly safe. Whoosh. Chen Fan stepped on the Blood Shadow war sword and walked through the 100-meter high altitude of Kirishima, overlooking the bottom while spreading his mental power to search. Boom. A roar came from the far end, and soon a faint excited laughter could be heard. Huh, it looks like it's Catalan and the others. Chen Fan's eyes lit up, his mind moved, and he immediately flew in the direction of the sound. And at this moment, the Phantom Catalan, the Giant Bear Kata and the Blood Shadow Ivan were attacking around a thick willow tree, and there were 8 chopped willow trees around. This tree is obviously not as good as the King Willow tree on the outside. You can take 3 plant spirits and leave. A voice suddenly sounded. The expressions of Phantom Catalan and the other 3 suddenly changed. They turned around and saw Chen Fan, who was stepping on the Blood Shadow war sword, slowly descending, with a faint smile on his harmless face. Hearing this, Catalan's face suddenly became embarrassed, and he cursed in his heart. Why did you provoke him just now when you were pretending to be a fool? Walk. Phantom Catalan doesn't even have the desire to fight Chen Fan. The 3 people immediately ran in 3 directions. Catalan is too fast to catch up, but Chen Fan judged at a glance that Kata the giant bear was the slowest among the 3. The Blood Shadow sword fight turned around and chased Kata the bear with a whoosh. Surrender, surrender. The giant bear Kata hadn't even rushed 3 kilometers when he turned around and saw Chen Fan coming to kill him. He raised his hands without saying a word. Whoosh, surrender. Chen Fan raised his eyebrows. Chen Fan, we have no grievances against you. I can't defeat you. Surrender and admit defeat. The giant bear Kata looked helpless and said in a stuttering Kyushu dialect, 2 of them, the spirits of vegetation, will be given to you. Said. He decisively opened his backpack and threw the spirit of vegetation inside to Chen Fan. I have to say, this giant bear Kata is very sensible. Even Catalan is no match for him, so Kata will naturally not be stupid enough to fight Chen Fan. But when you reach the level of God of War, it is usually not a life or death feud, and you rarely kill someone. After all, any God of War is the main force in fighting monsters and is a rare wealth for mankind. Then let's go first. When Kata saw Chen Fan throwing the spirit of plants and trees into the alloy box, he said in a naive voice, next time I go to Europa or the Palace of Mars, I'll treat you to a drink of the best vodka. Good. Chen Fan smiled and nodded slightly. Then we are friends, stop chasing after us. Finished. Keita ran away in a flash. The Palace of the God of War. Chen Fan was still rated as a high-level warrior, so he did not apply to join the God of War Palace. Immediately, the Blood Shadow sword moved quickly, and Chen Fan flew rapidly in another direction. The other side of Kirishima. The Blood Shadow Ivan quickly shuttled through the fog, his expression very solemn. When he looked back, he saw Chen Fan chasing Keita, and he couldn't help but feel worried. Drop. Huh, is it Keita? Keita, did you get involved with Chen Fan? The moment the communicator turned on, Blood Shadow Ivan's heart suddenly fell to the bottom. Keita is asking for help. No. Keita's relaxed voice came from the other end of the communicator. I gave him the spirit of the plants and trees, and then I made friends with him. Hear the words. Ivan was confused. Suddenly. He suddenly raised his eyes and saw a white stream of light quickly passing through the thick fog and arriving in front of him in an instant. Whoosh. The blurry figure condensed. It was Chen Fan who was stepping on the Blood Shadow sword. No, don't do it. When Ivan saw Chen Fan coming to kill him, he shouted loudly, I am also willing to hand over the spirit of plants and trees to be your friend. Be a friend. Chen Fan was stunned when he saw Ivan take out 3 plant spirits and decisively threw them to Chen Fan and said, Chen Fan, I didn't keep any of them. Very good. Chen Fan smiled slightly, threw the 3 plant spirits into the alloy box, and was about to leave. Over Kirishima. Suddenly, a fiery red stream of light quickly flew from the end of the sky, like a meteor streaking across the sky, which looked particularly dazzling in this long sky. Whoosh. In an extremely short time, the fiery red stream of light passed through the air and reached above Chen Fan and Ivan. This is a curly-haired white man wearing a combat uniform. He is suspended in the air. The space around him seems to be distorted, and traces of flames are rippling on his body. The man in the flames looked down, glanced at the 2 people, and said in English, Who are you? The power of elements is condensed on the body surface, and it can fly in the air. It must be an existence that surpasses the God of War. Ivan has met Mr. Congressman. Ivan immediately bowed and saluted respectfully. Chen Fan, on the other hand, stepped on the Blood Shadow and fought with the sword, neither humble nor arrogant. Chen Fan, the man in the flames nodded slightly, and then shouted, Cataland, come out. The rich voice was like a strong wind, sweeping across the entire Kirishima in an instant. Whizzing. After the sound spread out, there were bursts of air explosions, and soon Catalan and Keita were seen coming from the southeast side. Congressman Farr. Catalan and Keita were also very surprised when they saw the flame man, and immediately saluted respectfully. After the mental collision with Chen Fan, Catalan immediately informed his teacher. He did not expect that a being beyond the God of War would arrive so soon. I am practicing in mainland Australia. After your teacher informed me, I rushed here as soon as possible. Councillor Farr seemed to have seen through Catalan's thoughts and smiled. Give me the spirit of the grass and trees you took, and I will distribute it to you according to the alliance share afterwards. Yes, facing an existence that surpassed the God of War, Catalan did not dare to violate anything and handed over all the 4 plant spirits in his backpack. What about you? Ivan and Keita hesitated for a while, both looked at Chen Fan, and said with a helpless smile, give it all to him. Chen Fan, over Kirishima. The flaming Councillor Farr looked down at Chen Fan and said in a commanding tone, hand over the spirit of the grass and trees, and I will give it to you according to your share. It seems that Councillor Farr has been cultivating for a long time and thought that Chen Fan was with Catalan and the others. But it's normal to think about it, after all, when he arrived at the scene. Chen Fan and Ivan conducted the handover of the spirit of plants and trees in a very friendly manner. Sorry, Senator Farr. Chen Fan smiled calmly, cupped his hands and said, I'm not from your HR alliance. So, you robbed them of the spirit of their plants and trees. Councillor Fall's eyes instantly turned cold. Hand it over and I won't argue with you. Congressman Farr. Chen Fan's eyes narrowed, his mental power spread instantly, and he said righteously, you don't seem to be from our extreme martial arts gym, right? Even the planet-level Yan Hai couldn't catch up with him. Facing the fire element fair, Chen Fan was naturally not afraid. How brave. Senator Farr instantly turned into a fiery red stream of light and struck. Although he is said to be a being that surpasses the god of war, he is also subject to the rules of Hong and Thunder God, that is, he is superior to the god of war. Without sufficient reasons, it is forbidden to kill the god of war. What's more, Chen Fan is not only a member of the Extreme Martial Arts Gym, but also a member of the elite training camp. Kill. Senator Farr would definitely not dare, but he was confident that there were 10,000 ways to seize the spirit of plants and trees. Open. The moment Counselor Farr struck, Chen Fan's eyes narrowed, and the realm of heaven and earth opened instantly. Even the existence that surpassed the god of war suddenly felt his body sink. Is this the ability to surpass the god of war? The body is getting heavier. The three Catalans were suddenly shocked, looking at Senator Farr, who turned into a ball of flames with horror. However, what they didn't know was that Counselor Farr was equally shocked. Is this a realm? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Boom. Counselor Farr was covered in flames and punched Chen Fan. His surging flames were able to escape from his body, creating a 30-meter-long flame passage. The passage was 1 meter wide, and the space it passed through was burned and slightly distorted. In front of the passage, there was a flaming sphere. The fist is huge and terrifying. This is the power that surpasses the god of war. Chen Fan's pupils shrank. Every god of war can unleash violence, but a concentrated and unbreakable blow like Senator Farr's is almost impossible to achieve among gods of war. A critical moment. Unlike Counselor Farr, who relied on the power of the elements, Chen Fan only relied on his own strength, holding the Blood Shadow war gun, and suddenly punched that punch. Bang! The material of the SS-level Blood Shadow war gun is strong enough that it is extremely difficult to destroy even if it surpasses the god of war. The tip of the spear hit the giant flaming fist, and exploded like a needle hitting a balloon. Sparks shot out in the sky, and then Chen Fan walked out from the sparks with his Blood Shadow sword on his feet. The three Catalans stared wide-eyed and were silent for a moment. Facing the existence beyond the god of war, even the veteran high-level god of war is respectful. But this Chen Fan actually dares to fight with Representative Farr. Still not at a disadvantage. Although Counselor Farr only struck one blow and did not show his strongest strength, Chen Fan's ability to deal with it calmly was far superior to them. No wonder you are so arrogant. Counselor Farr's eyes narrowed. He flashed in the air, punched the dragon and snake away, and in the void, several flaming fists shot out like lightning. That moment, as everyone looked, it seemed as if a flaming meteor shower fell out of thin air. Facing the intensive impact, Chen Fan stepped on the Blood Shadow sword. His movements were strange and erratic, not getting close to Farr at all. Rise! Chen Fan fought with his sword and suddenly rushed into the sky, with a stream of light suddenly rising behind him. There was a trembling sound of the sword, and then the Blood Shadow sword exploded, and red streams of light suddenly flashed out, drawing strange arcs in the midair. Boom! Boom! The Blood Shadow sword hit the fireball and exploded in the air. The sound was like a mountain avalanche, echoing over Kirishima. In an instant, the entire sky seemed to be a fireworks feast. When the students from the peripheral elite training camp saw this scene, they all looked in shock and disbelief. That's Chen Fan. The other person was surrounded by flames and flying in the air. Oh my god, that is an existence that surpasses the god of war. He can actually fight against Senator Farr. When Candace of the Bolinas family saw this scene, she was immediately heartbroken. Come again. The true meaning of the sword. At this time, Chen Fan followed the sword and turned into a white dragon that danced for 9 days. He turned down in a volley and fought with the Blood Shadow war gun with a sudden red light. He suddenly rushed towards Counselor Farr, wanting to fight with him. A close blow. An existence that surpasses the god of war, he can attack with hundreds of tons at every turn, and his physical strength is even more tyrannical. The level difference in melee combat is almost like seeking death. Boom! The fire exploded, the energy exploded, and the world seemed to be shaking slightly. I saw Counselor Farr's fist carrying a rich flame, and a chi-chi sound exploded in the air. Huorin collided with Chen Fan's Blood Shadow gun, and from the intersection of the two, an explosive air flow spread in all directions. Go! Immediately afterwards, there were huge strength and fist flames that spread out in all directions, and finally rippled out in an arc like the explosion of a small bomb. The terrifying astral wind swept across, causing all the trees below to bend and break. Everyone stared with wide eyes and dumbfounded eyes. With the two of them at the center, Senator Farr flew upside down for dozens of meters, and his arms were trembling slightly. Ha ha ha! Chen Fan laughed loudly, his body swayed, and he fell back dozens of meters in the air. He stepped on the Blood Shadow War Sword. When he laughed loudly, his body was like a swimming dragon, and he suddenly folded and shot again. Come. You are looking for death. The muscles on Representative Farr's face were pulsing. He was furious at this moment. Flames all over his body were beating wildly as he punched out. Boom! It was like a bomb exploding high in the sky. At this moment, it was as if dozens of cannons were firing at Chen Fan. Every time they fired, the fire was bright and deafening. Boom, 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 whoosh, whoosh, call out. Facing the bombardment of Senator Farr, the alloy box behind Chen Fan was like a rocket launcher, continuously shooting out Blood Shadow swords, and each Blood Shadow sword was made of SS-level material. Even if he was as strong as Senator Farr, he could not destroy. Boom boom boom. The Blood Shadow swords crisscrossed and crossed, the sword light and fist power collided wildly, and the fireworks flew and spread in all directions, leaving all the students stunned and dumbfounded. Is this the power of the invincible god of war? The expressions of Catalin, Kata, and Ivan changed again and again, and their figures retreated again and again. They were all thankful that they didn't have to fight Chen Fan. No wonder he always looks so calm and calm. Zhao Ruo, Shi Zhong and others also changed their expressions. This is the first time they have seen Chen Fan use his full strength. Dozens of Blood Shadow war swords flew across the sky, their swords glowed like waves, and their energy surged wildly. They actually fought against a being that surpassed the god of war for hundreds of rounds without losing. It was simply beyond their imagination. As for the Europa students, their jaws almost dropped to the ground. Chen Fan fought and walked, fighting all the way from the south to the north. Within his domain, he always suppressed the speed of Senator Farr and calmly used his mental power to control the explosion of the Blood Shadow sword. With his current mental strength, every blow from the Blood Shadow war sword explodes with nearly 100 tons of force. Even an existence that surpasses the god of war cannot resist it with his body. How could he control so many shadow wars? Counselor Farr became angrier and angrier as he fought, and the intertwined blood shadows and swords shuttled around him like ghosts. Although his body skills were perfect, his speed was completely behind when he was turning and dodging. He was unable to bully Chen Fan at all. He was almost like a living target. Boom boom boom. Several more punches were thrown out, colliding with the Blood Shadow war sword, and fireworks exploded, setting the sky ablaze. Subsequently, Counselor Farr's body stagnated, and he flashed out of Chen Fan's domain in an instant. His body suddenly felt light, and his face immediately changed, and he was secretly surprised. It's really a field. His marksmanship is undoubtedly world-destroying. Could it be that he is Hong's direct disciple? Boom. At this time, a purple stream of light flew rapidly from the far end, and it turned out to be a triangular smart fighter. The hatch opens. Two figures flew out, one of them had long flowing hair and a faint smile on his face. His eyes swept over the scene, and when he saw a Blood Shadow sword return to the alloy box, his expression showed an obvious stagnation. Even Chen Fan saw the corners of his mouth twitching slightly. The other is wearing a golden mask, giving people an extremely cold feeling. Congressman Yu. Counselor Farr looked at Lu He, who walked out of the fighter plane. After saying hello, when his eyes fell on the golden masked man next to him, he suddenly showed a hint of surprise. Congressman Farr seems to have been through a big battle. After Lu He chuckled, he looked at Chen Fan and said, "If I guessed correctly, you are Chen Fan, right? Is my 99 SS level Blood Shadow sword useful?" He also specially emphasized the words, SS level. Can 6 trillion worth of goods not be used easily? Easy to use and quality guaranteed. Chen Fan cupped his hands and smiled. Even Counselor Farr can't destroy it. Quote. You. Counselor Farr's tone was stagnant, but he was weaker than others at the moment, so he didn't say much. Hear the words. Even if they had some guesses, Lu He and Bingshan's eyes condensed. With the strength of the god of war, can he be evenly matched with Fal, who surpasses the god of war? Chen Fan is probably the #1 among the gods of war throughout history. Congressman Farr, since we are here, the souls of the entire vegetation on Kirishima belong to our extreme martial arts school. Do you have any objection? Liu He still kept smiling. Hear the words. Councillor Farr's eyes flickered, and the flames on his body surged, and he said angrily, Councilman Liu, don't go too far. This Kirishima is a land without one, why should I give you an extreme martial arts gym? If you have the ability, everyone competes fairly, and whoever takes the spirit of the plants and trees will get it. I promise you. Liu He listened and nodded with a smile. This. Councillor Farr was stunned for a moment. What do you mean? Kirishima is filled with clouds and fog. Liu He looked at the iceberg next to him, smiled slightly and said, it seems you have to take action. Good. Bingshan nodded slightly, and his figure flashed in an instant, flying high into the distance. He immediately opened his hands, and as his eyes opened and closed, an invisible force centered on him spread out in all directions. Next moment, his figure flashed and disappeared into the depths of Kirishima. Catalan, you go too. Councillor Farr's gaze swept across the entire Kirishima island. It was so shrouded in clouds and mist that it was difficult to distinguish the spirit of vegetation with the naked eye alone. Congressman Fall, how about you stay here with me, so that you can feel relaxed and so can I. Liu He put his hands behind his back, glanced at Chen Fan and asked with a smile, how about we talk about this young man? How is his combat ability? Snort. Councillor Farr snorted cab but remained suspended in midair without any other movement. Subsequently, a figure suddenly rushed back, it was the phantom Catalan. Congressman Farr. Catalan's face was full of anger and he said unwillingly, our spirit of vegetation has been robbed. The other party is extremely fast and powerful, and the three of us have no ability to resist. Councillor Fall's face suddenly darkened, and he stared at Liu He coldly. Ha ha, but Liu He laughed loudly. Member Farr, fair competition, whoever wins it belongs to whoever wins it. You. Councillor Fall's face turned livid when he heard this, and he gritted his teeth and said, Councilman Liu, I wonder which of the first senator's personal guards the man in the golden mask is. Bingshan. Guessed it right. Liu He smiled lightly. You are still very smart. Everyone knows that there are 5 inspectors in the Extreme Martial Arts Hall, all of whom are beyond the God of War, but few people know that in addition to the 5 inspectors, the world's strongest man, Hong, also has 3 personal guards. They are the Beast, Enchanting, and Iceberg. They are also existences beyond the God of War. Young people. Liu He glanced at Chen Fan out of the corner of his eye and asked curiously, you don't seem surprised at all. That's right. With your status, you should have told me already. Hear the words. Chen Fan was speechless. What does it mean to be in my capacity? What is my identity? Call. While Liu He was speaking, a soft wind suddenly gathered and formed a circular cover that enveloped the two of them. Chen Fan's eyes narrowed slightly. It's just a small trick, I don't want Farr to hear our conversation. Liu He smiled and said, I know you are the husband of the God of Thunder's daughter. Chen Fan nodded slightly. The museum owner thinks highly of you, and you are indeed powerful, but you are also too courageous. Liu He shook his head slightly and said, although you are the invincible God of War, every existence that surpasses the God of War has its own special ability, like the flame controlled by Fal. He is not fast, and you still have a chance to escape, but if you encounter someone who is fast, woolen cloth. If you don't have enough strength, don't provoke the existence that surpasses the God of War, do you understand? Chen Fan still nodded and did not refute Liu He. If it weren't for the 99 SS level flying swords he approved, how could he have dealt with Farr so calmly? However, it surpasses the God of War. Chen Fan glanced at the system and saw that the delivery point had been restored, and he was about to break through at any time. Night begins to fall. Boom. A terrifying sound came from the center of Kirishima, and then the entire Kirishima trembled, which surprised both Liuhe and Farr in the air. Go. Leave Kirishima. A shout came out quickly. The figure of the iceberg jumped into the air from the center of Kirishima, obviously a little embarrassed. Whoosh. In the distance, a long black-purple vine with a diameter of 20 centimeters was seen shooting into the air. The length of this vine could not be seen at a glance. See this scene. There was only fear and horror in everyone's eyes. Only Chen Fan's eyes flashed with joy. Sengyun is finally out. Chapter 81. This vine. Liu He and Farr were shocked when they saw it. An endless line stretched out from the mist in the distance, like a dragon in the air, winding crazily towards the fleeing iceberg. Puff! Bingshan waved his hands, and the long knife as thin as a cicada's wings collided with the entangled long vines. The 3 Catalans below are also running for their lives. If a collision of this level is slightly affected, the god of war will also fall. Walk! Lu He knew Bingshan's strength very well. Even if he was facing such a difficult situation, he didn't dare to stay for a moment. He grabbed Chen Fan and said, "Follow me to the fighter plane." Whoosh! The fighter plane suspended at the far end quickly flew over and opened the hatch. Whizzing! Lu He and Chen Fan disappeared into the fighter plane like 2 streams of light. The fighter plane immediately burst into speed and distanced itself from Kirishima. Call up the battle scene of the iceberg. Lu He's face became solemn and he ordered. Brush. In the dark cabin, a battle scene was immediately projected. In the picture, Bingshan's figure kept flashing with a Z, trying his best to avoid the attacks of the long vine. Even though he was as fast as lightning, he was almost hit several times. Bang! The long vine whipped in the air, and the terrifying explosion shook the cabin. Is there such a scary plant? Lu He couldn't help but exclaimed. If the iceberg is drawn, it's over. Chen Fan looked at Muyandang's offensive and had some idea in his mind. With his current extreme speed, even if he could avoid the attack, he would not be able to penetrate smoothly into the ground. Boom! The shaking continued to intensify, and soon another black-purple vine with no end in sight quickly stretched out from the thick fog. Then, 3, 4, 5, each long vine seems to be endless, stretching out and quickly exceeding 1,000 meters. Fighter data shows that the vine's instantaneous expansion, contraction, and movement speed exceeded 1,000 meters per second. Lu He's face was livid, and there was a moment of hesitation in his eyes. Even a king-level monster is not so exaggerated. Bingshan is in big trouble now. Hear the words. Chen Fan was silent for a while. It's over. Lu He stared at the projection and saw 5 long vines about to completely surround the iceberg. Ah! Suddenly, the speed of the iceberg exploded instantly, more than twice as fast as before, breaking through the siege and flying towards the triangle fighter. Wow! The hatch opens. A stream of white light almost crashed in. Whoosh! The purple triangle fighter exploded with speed instantly and left the range of Kirishima. Over the entire Kirishima, the long black and purple vines flapped and waved wildly, as if venting their anger. Call! Lu He quickly helped Bingshan lean on the seat and asked with concern, "Bingshan, how are you? You can't die yet, but I used the original forbidden move, which hurt my body a lot." Bingshan's breath was weak and he whispered, "I need to take a good rest this time when I go back." It's okay. Lu He breathed a sigh of relief, and then couldn't help but ask, "What kind of forbidden moves can you teach me?" It's not that Lu He doesn't understand the rules, but the extreme explosive speed of the iceberg is too incredible. If he can learn this trick, he will have a much higher chance of saving his life when encountering danger. Your original characteristics are different from mine, so you can't learn from them. Bingshan glanced at Lu Hidao. If you have enough treasures to contribute to the museum owner, you can also ask the museum owner to create a set of life-saving tricks based on your original characteristics. How much is enough? When Lu He heard this, he was very interested. Bingshan looked at Chen Fan. It's probably worth about the same as his box. Chen Fan. Hear the words. Lu He hesitated for a moment and shook his head helplessly. Which inspector doesn't behave well when getting a contract? Fortunately for him, Chen Fan, he actually found a loophole in the contract. Iceberg, how is this harvest? There was no hope of saving his life. Lu He couldn't help but ask about the harvest situation on Chongdao. After regaining his breath a little, there was a rare hint of excitement in Bingshan's cold eyes. It's very big. I have restrained Senator Farr. When Lu He heard this, his eyes lit up and he said shamelessly, "Get a share." Even the iceberg can say the word, very big, so the harvest will definitely be huge. I barely give you 5%. Bingshan's eyes fell on Chen Fan and said, "Chen Fan, please hand over the spirit of grass and trees in your hand, and I can share 10% of it." Okay, Chen Fan agreed. According to the distribution of the Extreme Martial Arts Hall, those who participate in combat picking can occupy 30% of the share. Bingshan's 10% is indeed a lot. After all, he has a basket full. He's 10%. I'm only 5%. Liu He couldn't help but rolled his eyes. Why? He had a fight with Far. Bingshan smiled calmly and said, if it hadn't been for this fight, Far would have just sat idly by and ignored it. Don't be too short on yourself. There are 113 grass and tree spirits that I picked personally, and there are even 8 10,000-year-old willow hearts. Hear the words. Strong as Liu He even took a breath of cold air. Chen Fan sighed secretly, if you chop like this, if Mo Yintang doesn't chase you, who will chase you? The most precious thing is the long vine. I can sense its huge energy. The long vine that chased me in the end was just a part of it. Bingshan took a deep breath and said, so, I have already sent the battle scene to the museum owner. The museum owner should take action in this matter personally. Is the owner personally involved? Liu He nodded slightly. Then let's return to Hongning base city first. With Bingshan's strength, there is nothing he can do. Only Hong and Lei Shen in the world may be able to do something about it. At this time, Chen Fan said, Inspector Liu, I will not go back with you. Do you want to go back to mainland Australia? Liu He was startled, then smiled and said, with this incident, the life and death adventure in the elite training camp ended early, and a special passenger plane has been sent to pick them up. In this way, Chen Fan pondered for a moment and said, then I'll go back with you first. Judging from the current situation, Far is here, and other existences that surpass the god of war are probably on the way. Under the gaze of many strong men, it is difficult for Chen Fan to break into the underground. Point 0. In the final analysis, I still don't have enough strength. After Chen Fan sighed in his heart, he borrowed the computer on the Liu He fighter plane to log into Extreme Home. Choose the complete set of cheats for World Destruction. Choose the complete set of cheats for 9 layers of Thunder Knife. Liu He's fighter jet was extremely fast and returned to the base city of Hongning in just 1.5 hours. When Chen Fan arrived at the elite training camp, the car specially delivered by Extreme Martial Arts Gym was already waiting at the door. After getting the secret book, Chen Fan locked himself in the secret room underground of Zhongyan Pavilion. Since Mo Yintang has appeared in advance, I believe that various forces will soon start mining the Australian continent. Chen Fan thought in his mind. If Hong takes action, Mo Yintang will definitely be unable to do anything to Hong, who has a domain. Once the deterrence of Mo Yintang is lost, with the treasures Kirishima has revealed so far, it is impossible for all forces to hold back their greed. The god of war is not qualified to participate in this feast. Returning to Zhongyan Pavilion, Chen Fan decided to open the system. Name, Chen Fan. Realm, God of War level medium. Qualification, Monster. Cultivation method, 5 Hearts to Heaven cultivation method. 5734 N. Sword skill, the true truth of sword full. Cheats, level 4 full of destruction of the world. Domain, Heaven and Earth domain prototype. Drop point, 3. System time is automatically accumulated or obtained by placing it in the world. Choose a 3-star world. The world to be released is a level 1 3-star world. Please choose the host, Shengxia World or Fantasy World. The World of Immortals, introducing the secret books, 5 Hearts to Heaven cultivation method, destruction of the world, and 9 layers of Thunder Sword. At the same time, on the Australian continent, streams of light quickly gathered, including black flying saucer-shaped fighters and long strips of fighter jets filled with light. The figures coming out of these fighters were all suspended in midair. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 3 consecutive figures flew toward Representative Far high above Kirishima. 2 of them were white, and the other had slightly dark skin, resembling that of American descent. Teacher, Catalan, the phantom who was lucky enough to survive, immediately came forward to greet him. Is there anyone else coming? That is, the roar suddenly came from a distance, and the 4 transcendent gods of war suddenly looked back, their expressions darkening. It was a blood-red prehistoric level intelligent fighter plane. Wow, the hatch opens. A man with black hair, black clothes, and black pants walked out of the sky and stood in the air with his hands behind his back. Meet the first speaker. Counselor Far and the other 4 people bowed slightly and saluted. Since Kirishima is a deserted land, I'll give you, the 620s, a chance. Hong's face was expressionless, his cold eyes swept across Kirishima, and he said calmly, get whatever you can get. If you fail, leave quickly. Thank you, first speaker. The four beings who transcended the gods of war bowed slightly to Hong again, and immediately turned into four streams of light, attacking Kirishima. A few minutes later, roaring sounds continued to be heard in Kirishima, and four streams of light flew back quickly, floating below Hong. Each one was seriously injured, or his face was pale, or his mouth was bleeding. Even Far, who had been mentally prepared, was in a state of shock at this moment, collapse. First speaker. The four of them bowed slightly to Hong and immediately returned to their fighter planes. Obviously, the power of this long vine is no longer something they, the transcendent gods of war, can handle. Whoosh! After the failure of the four existences that surpassed the gods of war, Hong was like a black lightning heading towards Changeling. At this moment, the long vines were whipping, and terrifying sonic booms sounded one after another. Oh, Hong's eyes lit up. It's almost exactly the same as what was recorded in ancient civilization relics. Is this Moyantang? Chi. The long vine drawn with terrifying force was actually held by Hong Yi's hand. No matter how hard he struggled and twisted, he could not escape. The 16 long vines are undoubtedly Moyan vine. Hong showed a smile, grabbed the long vine and studied it carefully like a scientist. I made a lot of money this time. In this case, let's give something good to those who have made meritorious service. Chen Fan is the god of war, huh? It's just a perfect treasure for him. On the other side, there is the elite training camp, Zhongyan Pavilion, underground secret room. Chen Fan sat cross-legged, with a faint golden light flowing around his body, as if some kind of shackles had been broken. Put into the world. Level 1 3-star Shengxia World. Introducing the secret books. 5 Hearts to Heaven Cultivation Method, Destruction of the World, and 9 Layers of Thunder Sword. The clone is being condensed according to the current state of the host. It consumes 3 investment points. You have come to another world. This is a strange world. You were born in a downstream sect, but no one knows that your soul comes from another world. You have been practicing the 5 Hearts to Heaven Cultivation Method, and Destruction of the World, since childhood, and your experience is plus 100. In the 8th year, you are extremely talented, you condensed the cyclone to the limit, and became the sect's #1 genius. Experience plus 200. In the 9th year, you were restricted by the rules of the world and could not build a foundation, so you began to concentrate on studying world destruction, and 9 Layers of Thunder Knife. Experience plus 200. In the 11th year, you used the sect's cultivation method to fuse world destruction, and evolve the marksmanship, Comet Strikes the Moon. Experience plus 300. In the same year, you made further progress. Based on Destruction of the World, you integrated the immortal cultivation method, Kunshan Ju, and realized the spear technique, Falling Star. Experience plus 200. In the 18th year, you have been practicing Qi for 10 years, and the mysterious place controlled by the rules of the world is finally opened. You and many of your fellow disciples go to the mysterious place to participate in the Life and Death Foundation building trial. Mood plus 100. In the same year, you met the geniuses of other sects and saw the cruelty of the world of cultivation. Seeing your brothers fall one by one, you finally became angry. On this day, you shed blood with your spear, killed people when you met, and slayed demons when you met. You killed from the west of the secret realm through the north-south line, stained with the blood of hundreds of monks, and won the greatest opportunity in the secret realm, and thus planted your inner demons. Experience plus 300, mood plus 300. In the 19th year, you used the way of heaven to build the foundation. With accumulated accumulation, you broke through 10 levels in one day and reached the peak of foundation building. Experience plus 300. In the 24th year, killing is entangled in your heart. You are troubled by inner demons, so you choose to travel around the mortal world, transforming yourself into a god and overcoming your own knots. Mood plus 200. In the 27th year, you go up the river and meet a mysterious old man in a strange place, who calls himself the Gravekeeper. Mood plus 200. In the 29th year, you went down the river and met the Tombkeeper again in a desolate place. He laughed at you for not knowing anything about heaven and earth. The world you saw was just a big tomb, and told you a strange secret. Kung Fu, I hope you can break the world and walk out of this tomb. Experience plus 200, mood plus 200. In the 31st year, you returned to the sect and sat in meditation on the west side of the river for 3 years to understand the true meaning of mortal gods. Mood plus 200. In the 34th year, you realized Taoism by the river, broke the inner demons, broke through the 3 realms in 1 day, formed elixirs with the way of heaven, transformed infants from mortals, and entered heaven and humans through the 5 elements, becoming the most magnificent existence in history. Experience plus 2000, mood plus 500.0. In the 35th year, the rules of the world came down. You led your sect up the river, and with an invincible attitude, you swept through the 3 sects in the middle reaches, becoming a half-god in 1 step. Experience plus 1000. In the 37th year, you were ordered to go to the upstream sect to report the matter. Unexpectedly, your presence made the upstream sect feel threatened, and the 2 demigod ancestors took action against you. On this day, your bloody spear flew across the sky, the color of the sky and the earth changed, and the sun, moon, and stars all lost their color. You fought fiercely with the 2 demigod ancestors for 3 days and 3 nights. In the end, you were defeated because you were not as good as you were. When you were about to die, you used a secret method to break through the space, and instantly moved tens of thousands of miles away. Experience plus 2000. In the 38th year, the Tomekeeper's strange skills allowed you to retain a trace of life, and you were lucky enough to survive. Mood plus 500. In the 58th year, you practiced anonymously in the wilderness for 20 years, finally broke through and stood up, and entered the realm of demigods. Experience plus 2000. In the same year, you traveled thousands of miles and returned to your former sect, which was in ruins. The former prosperity had long been ruined and was now a ruins. You shed tears for the first time. Mood plus 2000.1. On this day, after half a year, you meet again the Tomekeeper who taught you the skills in the past. You realize that the world you are in is just a world left behind after the death of the most powerful person, and you are not what the Tomekeeper is looking for. That person. Mood plus 1000. In the same year, you bid farewell to the Tomekeeper, and went up the river again, one by one, and embarked on the road of revenge. However, this time there was no comrade from the sect behind you, only the desolation of death. Heart. Plus 500, 13,000. On this day, you shot through the void, just like the god of death came to the world, at the cost of burning your own life, and rushed into the upper treasure gate in panic. On this day, the sun and the moon hang upside down, the Tianhe River flows backwards, and countless creatures in this world seem to feel a sense of unwillingness and resentment. You went to the sect in blood, and slaughtered the entire sect's 84,214 people with your own strength. Experience plus 500. Unfortunately, you have also burned out your vitality and have no chance of survival. At the time of your death, you seem to see your former mentor, former colleagues, and former junior sister rest in peace. You finally sat down and died with your eyes closed. Mood plus 2000. The clone dies and the delivery ends. You will get 3,000 points of world destruction for this investment, and you will get 4,000 points for 9 layers of thunder knife by integrating your own creations of comet attacking the moon and falling stars, and 14,500 points for 5 heart opening cultivation method. Return to 3 o'clock delivery. Rewards that can be withdrawn. 1. Insights from this time's practice. 2. Insights from this launch battle. 3. This is a post on life insights. Boom. At this moment, the underground secret room of Zhongyan Pavilion shook violently, and violent cyclones began to rage. Boom. The moment the clone responded, Chen Fan's mental power seemed to fall into nothingness. In this piece of nothingness, it seems that everything is still, there is no passage of time, and there is no level of space. I don't know how long it took, but something started to change in the darkness. Dots of light appeared, which looked like pebbles or the birth of planets. Call. Chen Fan suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were like the boundless universe, deep and endless. What on earth is this? Did the feedback from the clone change the form of my sea of consciousness? Or is this the so-called birth of the inner world? While Chen Fan was thinking, the power in his body began to surge. From the beginning to the end, it surged like a huge wave, as if he could not control it at any time, and spread in all directions. When whirlwinds swept out of his body out of thin air, this surging energy began to restrain itself. Call. Is this the planetary level of life? Chen Fan sighed softly, slowly stretched out his palm, lowered his head and looked at it. His palm seemed to be a flawless piece of jasper, with a faint golden light flowing on it. Not just the palms, but from the arms to the shoulders, chest, abdomen, head and even limbs and internal organs. Every cell seems to have surging power. He stood up slowly, and when he took steps, it was as if he could walk on nothing but this body without using any force. Chen Fan gently clenched his fist, feeling the boundless power in his body that was as vast as the Yangtze River and the sea. He even had a feeling that he could blow up the entire planet with one punch. Certainly, Chen Fan knew that this was just an illusion after the power surge, and planet-level powerhouses did not yet have the ability to explode planets. Name: Chen Fan. Realm: planet level, 3rd level. Qualifications: Peerless. Cultivation method: 5 hearts to heaven cultivation method. 20,234 N. Secret skill: Comet strikes the moon and falls stars. Cheats: Destruction of the world, full. 9-fold thunder sword, full. Domain: Heaven and Earth domain prototype. Drop point: 3. System time is automatically accumulated or obtained by placing it in the world. As expected of the world of Shengxia, the sense of cultivation and power fed back by the clones are far superior to those before. Chen Fan thought thoughtfully, it should be that the mysterious skills taught by the so-called Gravekeeper were extremely extraordinary. Unfortunately, my avatar is not the son of destiny. Even if it is extremely talented, it can only exhaust its vitality and die. My mentor teaches me skills, and all the sect members are close friends in life and death. Perhaps from the perspective of my clone, I will carry a gun and go up the river to avenge them even if my life is burned. Chen Fan had a hint of understanding. It seems that the return of the drop point does not necessarily mean breaking through the void and reaching the top. Just like the 3-star fantasy world, even if the avatar is enough to become a god, it is subject to the rules of the world and is unwilling to accept the throne of a god. In the end, it is regrettable that it will die, so there is no source or point to put it. But this time, even if the clone brazenly burnt out its life, it could avenge the sect's rogue, and finally gave up its obsession and left in peace, thus returning the place of release. Comet strikes the moon. Integrate your own power and strike with a fierce blow. The gun is like a comet and shatters the moon. Chen Fan's eyes lit up and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. This blow is twice as powerful as the sword's true meaning, it is terrifying. Although the explosive power of falling stars is a little less, the range is vast enough. This is not a secret skill, it is simply a method of cultivating immortals. After realizing the secret technique, Chen Fan couldn't help but sigh. Evening time. Chen Fan. Yang Wei arrived outside the Zhongyan Pavilion courtyard, followed by a woman in black uniform. Teacher Yang. Chen Fan walked out of the house and opened the courtyard door. Chen Fan, you seem a little different. As soon as Yang Wei laid eyes on him, he felt something was different about Chen Fan. If Chen Fan was sunny and handsome in the past, and he had a boy next door look, Chen Fan is now more reserved. Apart from the fact that he is still handsome, his temperament seems to be a little blurry. Slight improvement. Chen Fan smiled slightly. Senior brother Shi Zhang and senior sister Zhao Ruo haven't come back yet. By the way, something happened on the Australian mainland. The life and death trial in the training camp was moved to the Sahara. As for you. Yang Wei glanced at the woman in black uniform behind him and said, you have to go see the owner first. Student Chen Fan, I am Xiu. The master of the hall has summoned me. Please come with me. The woman in black uniform with broken hair said with a smile. Good. Chen Fan nodded and followed Xiu along the familiar road to the main entrance of the elite training camp, where a black luxury car was parked. Xiu took the initiative to open the car door, bowed slightly and said with an invitation, Student Chen Fan, please get in the car. 20 minutes later, Chen Fan once again appeared at the Extreme Martial Arts headquarters. In fact, the headquarters of the Extreme Martial Arts gym was transformed from a giant spaceship. When Chen Fan stood at the door, a blue light shone from the spaceship and enveloped Chen Fan. Drop. Student Chen Fan, please come in. An electronic voice rang out. Xiu, who was beside Chen Fan, smiled and explained, Student Chen Fan, only a very small number of high-level officials in the headquarters have the authority to enter. Anyone who breaks into the headquarters without authority will be killed by the defense system. Student Chen Fan, there will be others to receive you when you enter. Chen Fan nodded and walked into the dozens of meters wide hatch passage, which was filled with silvery white. At a glance, he saw that almost all personnel inside the base were wearing blue robes, and a very few were wearing red robes. Student Chen Fan, please follow me to the lounge and wait. A woman in blue robe stepped forward to greet Chen Fan with a smile. At this time, there were already 2 people waiting in the lounge. It was Lu He and Bingshan who returned to Hongning Base City with Chen Fan. When he saw the woman in blue robe leading Chen Fan into the lounge, the 2 of them raised their eyes almost at the same time, and Lu He's original smile froze for an instant, and then his eyes widened. Chen Fan, have you made another breakthrough? Lu He couldn't believe it. This feeling. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Yesterday afternoon you were still a mid-level god of war. His words stalled, and Bingshan, who had always been taciturn, shrank his pupils suddenly and uttered 7 words. Existence beyond the god of war. When these 7 words came out, Chang Ruliuhe was immediately confused. It's really incredible. After all, how long has it been since we last met? One day. You have crossed 2 realms from an intermediate god of war, to a breakthrough to an existence that surpasses the god of war. This, are you too hurt? There was no look of belief on Lu He's face. He couldn't help but take a look at Bingshan and said, so the induction is wrong. Iceberg. Convex Shiden. Bingshan glanced at Liuhe, coldly, without saying a word. It was just a fluke. Chen Fan smiled, not hiding his strength. In fact, he doesn't need to hide his strength. Looking at the whole world, the only ones who can pose a threat to him are Hong and Lei Shen. Even the 3rd speaker, Mo Henderson, who is known as the Ice and Snow Emperor, is only a 3rd-level planet-level powerhouse. If he really wants to take action, with the strength of Chen Fan's soul, he can't be beaten, he can only be crushed. Incredible. It's incredible. Lu He muttered for a few times. It seems I have to call you Inspector Chen from now on. Chen Fan. And this time, Bingshan, the museum owner summoned me. A voice sounded, and a black man in red robe was seen standing outside the resting gate. Bingshan stood up, still wearing a golden mask, and followed the black man in red robes out of the lounge. Chen Fan. After Bingshan left, Lu He raised his eyebrows and suddenly asked, you still don't know that the existence beyond the god of war is also called a planet level? No, Chen Fan answered honestly, and the corners of Lu He's mouth suddenly twitched slightly. Okay, you're chatting to death. Lu He simply stopped talking and went alone in depression. After a while, the black man in red robe from before came over again. Inspector Lu, the host has summoned us. Chen Fan, the museum owner has a lot of good things. You can ask the museum owner before redeeming. Lu He thought for a while, but still didn't forget to tell Chen Fan. Chen Fan nodded slightly and waited quietly. Soon, the black man in red robe came to the door. Student Chen Fan, the owner of the hall has summoned him. Chen Fan stood up and followed the black man in red robe along the corridor to the door of a quiet room. The black man in red robe bowed slightly and left. Chen Fan, come in. Hong's voice came from inside. The owner. Chen Fan pushed open the door and walked in. It was an empty living room with no furnishings and only 2 cushions. Hong sat cross-legged on the mat quietly, pointed to another mat in front of him, and his expression moved slightly. Have you made a breakthrough? Yes. Chen Fan nodded slightly and sat cross-legged on the mat. This time when facing Hong, he could no longer feel the oppressive force. In less than half a year, he became a being that surpassed the god of war. Hong looked at Chen Fan, smiled and sighed. I have to admit, even I made a mistake this time. It seems that the treasure prepared for you is meaningless. Chen Fan's eyes moved slightly. Something that could be turned into a treasure must be something extraordinary. However, since Hong said this, it must be a treasure at the level of the god of war. Many rare treasures will become useless when they reach the planet level. Just like the spirit of plants and trees, taking it by the god of war can greatly increase physical vitality, but for beings who surpass the god of war, the effect is much smaller. Especially for a third-order planet like Chen Fan, it can be said to be negligible. You have made great contributions to the Kirishima mining this time. According to the martial arts gym quota, you can get 10% of the share. Hong waved his hand, and a three-dimensional virtual projection immediately appeared in the conference room. The phantoms of plants and trees appeared in front of Chen Fan. According to the share, you can get a total of 12 plant spirits. However, you are now beyond the god of war, and the spirits of vegetation have almost no effect on you. Hong waved his hand again and said with a smile, "So, I give you the opportunity to use the spirit of the plants and trees to exchange for the treasure you need." As Hong waved his hand, the three-dimensional projection changed, and many categories appeared, such as cheats, intelligent fighter, weapons, war clothes, and so on. Under each category, there are many physical projections, with a total of 6,000 to 7,000 types. Drop. There was an electronic sound, and the 12 plant spirits that appeared were 2 stars, 2.5 stars, 3 stars. The total price was 38 stars. This is the total value of your share. This star is a unit I randomly selected. Hong smiled and said, "At our level, money in this world no longer means much." Quote. Chen Fan nodded. It was indeed the case. After signing the patrol contract, the money in his warrior account was no longer used. Although it cost nothing to buy World Destruction and 9 layers of Thunder Knife, as of now, there were almost no cheats or items sold by the Extreme House that he could like. Take a good look. Hong was very patient and silently watched Chen Fan flip through the redemption list. A long while. Lord, exchange for the Spear of Destruction. After Chen Fan looked through all the objects, he finally chose the world-destroying gun in the first column of weapons. The gun of destruction. Hong's eyes showed a hint of surprise. Chen Fan, this Spear of Destruction is worth 38 stars, but your entire wealth, regardless of others. Not consider, Chen Fan said with a faint smile. On the exchange list, he saw the Duntian shuttle, and this Spear of Destruction was actually ranked above the Duntian shuttle Good Promise. Obviously Hong valued this weapon very much. It doesn't matter. Seeing Chen Fan's resolute attitude, Hong couldn't help but shake his head and smile. I chose the name, World-Destroying Spear, at random. I found this weapon from an ancient ruins. I don't know what material it is made of. Even if it is SS level, even the battle clothes cannot withstand its sharpness. Even I haven't been able to develop the sense system to this day. Hong also added the 2 treasures, World-Destroying Spear, and Escape Sky Shuttle, to the exchange list because he obtained Moyandang. Otherwise, how could a weapon that even Hong couldn't study thoroughly be worth only 38 stars? This is obviously calculated based on Chen Fan's wealth. Hear the words. Chen Fan suddenly realized that this weapon must belong to an alien civilization, or the immortal strongman from the fallen ink star. Or maybe it comes from an even more ancient race. Chen Fan, you have now broken through to the existence beyond the god of war, and the patrol envoy contract you signed before has officially come into effect. Li Yao, Yan Hai and others will not pose a threat to you. You don't have to stay at elite training camp anymore. Hong Yi waved his hand, and the previous projection disappeared instantly. He. As he spoke, Hong seemed to have thought of something, and suddenly smiled and said, I believe you also feel that the improvement of genetic energy will make life jump. At this level, people will generally abandon secular concepts. Speaking of this, Hong's smile became even brighter. Considering the strength Chen Fan has shown, it is not an exaggeration to call him Big Brother Hong. Let's not talk about this yet. Hong Yi waved his hand, as if he hadn't been so happy for a long time. Chen Fan was startled, thinking that Hong smiled a little too much today. However, it's normal to think about it. With his strength and status, everyone in the world, except for the God of Thunder, only has awe and admiration for him, and cannot chat like a normal brother and friend. Although Chen Fan is not strong enough, with the speed of his cultivation, Hong even believes that it will be a matter of time before Chen Fan surpasses him. In this way, his burden to carry forward for all mankind will be much lighter. This is why Hong and Lei Shen spare no effort to cultivate warriors and support the younger generations. In the end of the world, any strong person who rises from the sky will give mankind more hope. There are 5 inspectors in our martial arts hall, and you are the 6th. Hong continued. Since you have become the inspector of the martial arts school, you must take on corresponding responsibilities. I will give you 2 choices. The first is to choose to stay in the elite training camp, take over the management of the entire training camp affairs from Wang Yu, and let him go to the Australian mainland to station. The second is that you take over Vladimir's patrol around the world, and he goes to Australian soybeans. Third, you will go to Australia to station on behalf of extreme martial arts. I'm going to the Australian mainland. Chen Fan didn't hesitate. Good. Hong nodded and said, it will take some time for the HR Alliance to establish a mining base. I will ask Lu He to arrange the succession ceremony of your inspector, and someone will notify you then. Drop. At this time, a black man in red robe walked in carrying an alloy box Ka. This is the world-destroying spear. Of course, you can rename it. By the time Chen Fan left the Extreme Martial Arts headquarters, night had fallen. I don't know how Zhao Lei is doing. Chen Fan turned on the communicator and dialed Lei Lei's phone number. Uncle Xiao Chen. Lei Lei's coquettish voice with a hint of joy came from the communicator. Have you finally remembered your dearest wife? Husband, I have a surprise for you. Your wife and I have broken through to the god of war. Are you awesome? Praise me. Hear the words. Chen Fan smiled knowingly. In terms of talent alone, Lei Lei could definitely be called a genius. Amazing, my dearest wife, of course she is amazing. Honey, let me tell you a surprise. Your husband and I have surpassed the god of war. Are you awesome? Praise me. Lei Lei. Zhongyan Pavilion, first floor, west. After making an appointment with Lei Lei to pick her up during the Chinese New Year, Chen Fan opened the alloy box containing the world-destroying gun. A red long spear lay flat in the box, 2 meters long, with strange runes engraved on the body of the gun, which looked like carvings and writing. The head of the gun is a 4-sided sharp point, and you can feel its sharpness even if you look at it with the naked eye. Chen Fan stretched out his hand and touched it gently. Tear, the finger suddenly tore a gash, and blood dripped. It's really extraordinary. With Chen Fan's current planet-level 3rd-level physical strength, the impact of ordinary SS-level weapons may not be able to hurt him, but this world-destroying spear can tear open a hole with just a light touch. Its sharpness one can imagine. I have always used the Blood Shadow series of war guns. This gun looks like blood and is as red as blood, so let's call it Red Shadow. Chen Fan held up the Red Shadow spear and flashed out. Night time. In a wilderness area about 500 kilometers away from the base city of Hongning, a red light swept down, a chasm hundreds of meters long opened up the earth, and hundreds of monsters were rolled into pieces by the terrifying force. Nice gun. Chen Fan was suspended in midair and with a casual strike, the senior Lord Golden Scale Snake instantly shattered into slag. Hoo-ho! Chen Fan's figure flashed, and without the help of mental power, the strength of his body alone reached 1 kilometer per second. The speed was so fast that air waves formed in the air. The air waves merged together strangely, forming a streamlined air shield, visible to the naked eye along Chen Fan's body, just like a meteor burning across the surface when it streaked across the sky. The flame cover is the same. In the main urban area of Zhongyan Base City, inside the Extreme Guild Hall, President Zhou Zhengyang and Zhu Dao were discussing a new round of warrior assessments in a room when Mandarin's communicator lit up. Inspector Liu. Zhou Zhengyang held his cell phone and smiled. You are calling me so late. Do you have any instructions for the assessment? What? The new inspector's ceremony will be held in Zhongyan Base City. Zhou Zhengyang's pupils dilated and he said with a look of disbelief. Generally, the succession ceremony of the inspector is held either in his hometown or in the base city of Hongning. It's hard to say. The hometown of this new inspector is our Zhongyan Base City. What? Or the warrior I was during my tenure. Zhou Zhengyang's face was full of shock, and a name suddenly appeared in his mind. Inspector Liu, the new inspector you are talking about cannot be. Chen Fan, right. When Zhou Zhengyang said what he said, he couldn't believe it. Okay, I'll check the email myself. After hanging up the phone, Zhou Zhengyang took 2 deep breaths, looked at Zhu Dao, and opened the email from the Extreme Martial Arts Gym with anxiety. New Inspector, Chen Fan. Hometown is Yangzhou City, Zhongyan Base City. Strength evaluation. An existence beyond the god of war. Zhou Zhengyang and Zhu Dao looked at each other, and both saw the bewilderment in the other's eyes. Yes, is it the Chen Fan? At this point, Zhou Zhengyang still couldn't believe it. Half a year has passed. Zhuge Dao even heard it like a book from heaven and murmured to himself, I am still the high-ranking general before. He has surpassed the god of war. The warrior ID number is correct, it was assessed on August 1st last year. It's really Chen Fan. It's really him. Zhou Zhengyang and Zhuge Dao didn't know how to describe their mood at this moment. Apart from horror, there was also a hint of joy. Especially Zhuge Dao, who was the inspector who snatched this talented warrior from the Thunder and Lightning Martial Arts School. Now in less than half a year, Chen Fan has become one of the most core members of the martial arts gym. He is so powerful that even presidents like Zhou Zhengyang can be dismissed with a single word. Zhuge, put down what you are doing and do your best to complete this succession ceremony. Zhou Zhengyang solemnly said. With Chen Fan's cultivation speed, I can't say that he will definitely surpass the master of the gym, but sooner or later he will become the third person in the world. President, don't worry. Zhuge Dao nodded solemnly, and Chen Fan became the inspector. He, Zhuge Dao, was also honored. And this night is destined to be an extraordinary night. Outer space. It is vast and mysterious, with meteors flying across it from time to time, as if confirming the fall of a certain civilization. Call out. A golden stream of light shuttled through the boundless starry sky, flying directly to Chen Fan's planet at nearly the speed of light. This golden stream of light passed through the atmosphere like other extraterrestrial meteorites and went straight into the vast sea. The strange thing is that the nearly light speed fall did not cause any special changes in the sea surface. This sea area was still rippling with magnificent waves, which did not even attract the attention of the surrounding monsters. What's even more strange is that this stream of light spans the long sky until it falls into the sea. Human satellites and monitoring equipment have no response, as if this golden stream of light has never appeared. However, deep under the sea, at the bottom of the sea, which is 3,000 meters deep, the golden stream of light has dissipated, leaving only an oval black dome with a diameter of about 12 meters. Its eggshell has strange golden markings and a strange golden light. This moment, people were sleeping as usual, not knowing that the nightmare had come. Early the next morning, Chen Fan, outside Zhongyan Pavilion, Yang Wei opened the courtyard door and shouted. Since the students have gone on trial and most of the teachers in the elite training camp are on vacation, Yang Wei happens to be on duty, and now he seems to be Chen Fan's housekeeper. Teacher Yang, you came just in time. When Chen Fan saw Yang Wei coming over, he called him into his attic and said, I have 99 SS level blood shadow swords here. Can you help me deal with them? Yang Wei, ooh, what do you think of me, Yang Wei? After all, I am also the special envoy of the Extreme Martial Arts Gym. Teacher at Elite Training Camp. A dignified intermediate god of war. You will definitely have to pay for the errands this time. Chen Fan added. Good. Yang Wei looked at the Blood Shadow War sword in an alloy box, nodded helplessly and said, someone from the top management of Kyushu is here. They are waiting in the living room. They want to see you. Top management. Chen Fan was startled and then understood. Although the fact that he became an inspector has not been made public, the battle between the Australian mainland and Far will definitely not be concealed. As a native of Kyushu, it is normal for high-level officials of Kyushu country to invite me. Okay. Chen Fan nodded and followed Yang Wei to the conference room of the elite training camp. Subsequently, Yang Wei dialed Inspector Liu's communicator, took a deep breath and said, Inspector Liu, I have a batch of SS-level weapons here, all of which are Blood Shadow swords, 99 in total. Roll. In the conference room. As soon as Chen Fan entered the conference room, he saw two people in the conference room at a glance. A middle-aged man with a trace of frosty white hair was sitting upright. His cultivation was obviously low, but his eyes were extremely sharp. Another middle-aged man in casual clothes looks ordinary, but he gives people an unfathomable feeling. He is obviously a being who transcends the god of war. Hello, Mr. Chen Fan. The middle-aged man stood up and said with a smile, let me introduce myself, I am Zhu Wei from the administration, and this is Councillor Jia Yijia. Lao Zhu, you should call him Congressman Chen. Jia Yi sighed. When I received the news before, Councillor Chen was still the invincible god of war, but I didn't expect that he has surpassed the god of war now. It's true that a hero comes from a boy. You two are overly complimentary. Chen Fan said humbly. I wonder what you two want from me. Haha, I didn't expect Senator Chen to be so direct. Zhu Wei first laughed, then his expression condensed, and he said solemnly, I originally hoped to invite Counselor Chen to join Washan, but now it seems that Counselor Chen should have been appointed as the inspector of the Extreme Martial Arts Gym. Then, on behalf of Washan, I hope Congressman Chen can help the motherland when it is in danger. After saying that, Zhu Wei was about to bow to Chen Fan, but was surprised to find that he couldn't bend his waist. I can't bear this gift. Chen Fan raised his hand slightly and said without any hesitation, if you need anything, please contact me at any time. If it weren't for these brave soldiers and warriors who were not afraid of death to protect the peace of Jojo Kingdom, he might not be able to grow to where he is today. Congressman Chen. Zhu Wei and Jia Yi looked excited and said gratefully, thank you. An existence that surpasses the god of war is as powerful as a military district, and Chen Fan is also a spiritual master. At their level, a promise is more effective than any contract. Europa region, Paris base city. Away, I must avenge you. Must. Spirit, will. My spirit is revenge. Revenge is my will. Li Yao, who had gained Yan Hai's breakthrough experience, was almost in a state of madness every day. He could not rest well during the day and could not sleep at night. Whenever he closed his eyes, he seemed to see Li Wei's headless corpse dangling in front of his eyes. Endless resentment continues to accumulate, causing Li Yao's life to loosen little by little. Hatred condenses the darkness, and revenge becomes the last light in the heart. Kai, this light will eventually tear apart the darkness. Chen Fan, I want you to die. I must want you to die. Ha 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 ha. A violent cyclone exploded from the basement, and the entire ancient building collapsed instantly as if it had suffered a magnitude 10 earthquake. Yao, you succeeded. From the ruins, a voice of surprise came out. Venina, check. Li Yao looked ferocious, breathing heavily from his nostrils, standing on top of the ruins, with energy swirling all over his body, and there was a faint light. Find where Chen Fan is immediately. Yao, looking at the crazy Li Yao, Wenina couldn't help but persuade him, so what if you can kill him? Hong won't let you go. If he doesn't die, my life would be worse than death. At this moment, Li Yao and Wenina didn't know that the god of war they were so proud of was still vulnerable to Chen Fan. The next afternoon, in Hongning Base City, a Yulin fighter jet departed from the Extreme Martial Arts Hall headquarters for the Australian mainland. The work content is not complicated. On the fighter plane, Chen Fan looked over the work situation of the troops stationed in the Australian mainland. There are a total of 5 strong warriors under his command who have been stationed in the Australian mainland for a long time. And he doesn't have to stay there all the time, he just needs to solve some troubles that the 5 gods of war can't solve. I just don't know what those 2 people's expressions will be like when they see me. Chen Fan looked at the list and couldn't help but have a weird smile on his face. Australia mainland, Kirishima base. After Moyundi was swept away by the flood, the original clouds and fog dissipated, leaving only a bare island and an inland lake surrounding it. Li Kan held his arm, obviously slightly injured. This HR alliance is bullying people too much. Along with Kirishima's excavation, several forces were attacked by monsters from the Domain Lord in the waters. Li Kan was injured in a fierce battle with the Lord Monster. But the problem is that the monsters solved it. The spirit of grass and trees was poached by people from the HR Alliance. We are inferior to others, there is nothing we can do. Wang Tong handed him the medicine and said, now we can only wait for the top management of the martial arts school to come over. After the 2 war gods ended their adventures in the wilderness area, they decided to join a force. The first choice was naturally the Extreme Martial Arts School. As Kirishima appeared on the Australian mainland, the 2 were assigned to garrison on the Australian mainland. It is said that he is the newly appointed Inspector Chen. Li Kan smiled bitterly and said, I'm afraid that my strength cannot keep up with those veteran congressmen, and I will still be overpowered in the end. Boom. At this time, the sonic boom of a fighter jet was heard near Kirishima. People are coming, Wang Tong said repeatedly, and Li Kan and the other 3 war gods also ran out to greet the newly appointed Inspector Chen. Wow! The cabin door of the Yulin fighter opened. Then they saw a young man in white combat uniform, carrying a red spear on his back, standing in the air, and walking in the air. He had black hair and black eyes, His aura was as unpredictable as a bottomless abyss, and his whole body was pulsing with a faint golden-green shimmer. Emerging and flying must be an existence that surpasses the god of war. Inspector Chen. The 5 war gods bowed first. He is Inspector Chen. Wang Tong and Li Kan looked up, their eyes suddenly widened, and then they looked at each other, and they both saw the incredible look in each other's eyes. How? Brother Wang and Brother Li don't recognize me? With a faint smile on his face, Chen Fan floated down in front of the 5 people. We know each other so well. Li Kan scratched his head, but the corner of his mouth twitched, obviously it hurt from the wound. How is it going? Chen Fan asked as he glanced at the other 3 war gods. Before he came, he read the information about his subordinates. Wang Tong, nicknamed Shadow Sword, was a veteran high-level god of war, and Li Kan was a middle-level god of war, nicknamed Strong Bear. The other 2 women and 1 man are Ba Dao, Wen Shiqi is a medium god of war, Moon Witch, Zhang Feng is a high god of war, and Fox, Xiao Xiao is a medium god of war. Return to the patrol envoy. Zhang Feng, the leader of the god of war team, said with a slightly solemn expression, as the mining of Kirishima deepens, water monsters continue to attack the mining workers. These monsters are basically lord level. As for the willow hearts, we collected a total of 6,000-year-old willow hearts, and not a single 10,000-year-old willow heart. It's not that it's not missing, it's that it was robbed. Wang Tong added, when we were fighting a big octopus Chen, the people from the HR Alliance took the opportunity to chop down the Willow King and steal the 10,000-year willow heart. Lao Li was also injured because of this. Inspector Chen, there are 2 congressmen on the other side. When Shiqi had a sullen look on his face, it was obvious that they had negotiated. According to the agreement between all parties, Kirishima is divided into several areas. Under normal circumstances, each of them mines their own area. However, Kirishima is so big. Once a battle breaks out, it will easily attract war gods from other forces to come and take a peek. As a result, Wang Tong and Li Kan were robbed again. The person who did this last time was Chen Fan. Boom. At this time, 2 streams of light flew from a distance, one was fiery red, it was Chen Fan's old acquaintance, Senator Farr. The other stream of light is black and gray, but it can float down. It is obviously an existence that surpasses the god of war. Is that you, Chen Fan? When Councillor Farr saw Chen Fan, his expression changed. The HR Alliance naturally knew that extreme martial arts would send an inspection envoy to the Australian mainland, but obviously they did not expect it to be Chen Fan. After the previous battle with Chen Fan, Councillor Farr had already retrieved some information about Chen Fan. He couldn't help but be surprised by the existence that surpassed the god of war. In less than half a year, he jumped from a warrior to an intermediate god of war. With the peak mental power of a high-level god of war, he can actually resist himself and not fall behind. Moreover, it seems that he has understood the field. You know, among all the planet levels in the world, only Hong has mastered the power of the domain. Even the god of thunder has not yet been able to understand the domain. But now, since he came as an inspector of the Extreme Martial Arts Hall, he must have broken through and surpassed the god of war. Congressman Farr, since you're here, it saves me a trip. Chen Fan raised his eyes to look at the 2 beings who transcended the gods of war, smiled slightly and said, look, you are the one who handed over Fang Nian Lu Muxin who belongs to our ultimate martial arts school. Or shall we fight again? By the way, I am now a being that surpasses the god of war, 0 degrees. Hear the words. Wang Tong, Li Kan and others' expressions suddenly froze, and their eyes widened. Is there an existence beyond the god of war now? The information Chen Fan brought in one sentence was shocking. In other words, when Chen Fan was still the god of war, he had a fight with Councillor Farr. Looking at this posture, it is obvious that this fight was not lost. Haha, young people are arrogant. Another being who surpassed the god of war sneered. Chen Fan, how dare you, a young boy in your 20s, act so presumptuously in front of 2 major congressmen. Kirishima is in so many dangers that there's no need to fight. Councillor Farr forced a smile, took out a 10,000-year-old willow tree from his combat uniform and threw it to Chen Fan. Consider this a gift from me to congratulate you on becoming the inspector, Carol West, let's go. Farr gave Carol a look, and immediately turned into two streams of light and shot away. Bring it back now. Wang Tong and the others looked at each other. When did the existence beyond the god of war become so easy to talk to? When the two streamers returned to the HR Alliance's station. Far, why did you give them the heart of 10,000 years of willow wood? Kurol Si frowned and said, a newly promoted inspector can only be at the first level of planetary level at most. First order. Far shook his head and smiled, then his expression became serious and he said, Carol West, he is a spiritual master. Moreover, he may also comprehend the field. Karl C. looked at Far in shock, in disbelief. I had a fight with him before. At that time, he was still the spiritual master of the high god of war. Far looked a little ugly, but he had to admit, he is not as good as me, but I can't do anything to him. Now that the water monsters are getting stronger and stronger, they may even join forces with the extreme martial arts school. There is no need to offend Chen Fan for the heart of a 10,000-year-old willow tree. Good. Karl C. nodded. Fal sighed in his heart. Once the invincible god of war's spiritual master breaks through, I'm afraid he may not be his opponent compared to East. It seems that our MP ranking will drop by 1 again. Boom. On the second day after Chen Fan arrived in Australia, there were 12 battles in Kirishima, including 7 junior lords, 4 intermediate lords, and a senior lord flying swordfish. This resulted in the death of a god of war in the HR Alliance, and in the end, Kurol Si and Far teamed up to kill the swordfish. Inspector Chen, the island in the lake has been completely mined, and Europa has begun digging along the east coast of the lake. Amahank of India and Vanity encounters the high-ranking Lord Ironclad Sauron. Mikhaisky of the Soviet Union also encountered the high-ranking Lord Spiny Dace. Zhang Feng explained the situation of Kirishima. With human mining, more and more high-ranking lords appeared, and the risk factor continued to rise. Even the high gods of war are at risk of falling at any time. Let Wang Tong and Li Kan retreat. There is no need to explore further. After Chen Fan gave the order, he swayed and turned into a green gold phantom, rushing out of the temporary station and arriving above the original garden island. At this time, Kirishima disappeared 20, and many gods of war rushed directly into the lake to explore underwater. Suddenly, the communicator on the combat uniform vibrated slightly. Congressman Chen, it's me, Jia Yi. We are stationed 3 kilometers south of the lake island. Can Senator Chen have time to meet us? Jia Yi's voice came from the other end of the communicator. Okay, I'll come over. Chen Fan glanced around and immediately discovered the station of Kyushu Kingdom. He swayed and turned into a stream of green gold flying towards the south of Kirishima. After meeting at the elite training camp, Chen Fan exchanged contact information with Zhu Wei and Jia Yi. I also checked the information of the 2 people by the way. Compared with Zhu Wei, Chen Fan admired Jia Yi more. Our ancestors have been soldiers for generations, and they have shed countless blood and sweat for Kyushu. They can be said to be the true pillars of the country, and they are full of loyalty. And Jia Yi is the first person in the military to surpass the god of war. He has made a major contribution in establishing the base city. With decades of credit, he has directly and indirectly saved countless Kyushu people. Congressman Jia. Chen Fan came to the station of Jojo Kingdom, and when he stepped into a large passenger plane under the guidance of a uniformed woman, he saw Jia Yi coming out. Haha, Inspector Chen, why don't you call me Brother Jia when you are out? Jia Yi laughed and said, Old dang, this is Chen Fan, Inspector Chen, whom you have admired for a long time. In this case, Chen Fan would be more respectful than obedient. Brother Jia, just call him Chen Fan. Chen Fan smiled, looked at another middle-aged man and said, this must be Congressman Dang, right? What Senator Dang? Councillor Dang pressed down and said with a teasing smile, Old Dang, just Old Dang. We are all from Kyushu, so don't be so outspoken. Quote. Chen Fan nodded. Chen Fan, I won't mince words. The main reason I came to you is because of this. Jia Yi Yuan pointed to the large screen behind Councillor Dang and said straight to the point. This is a detector excavated from ancient civilization ruins. Those green light spots are monsters under the waters of Kirishima. The brighter the light spots, the stronger the life energy. These are generally lord monsters. Jia Yi walked up to the screen, pointed at the ripples on the screen that were like sound waves spreading, and said, The further down you go, the fewer the monsters are, but the stronger the energy that appears. Until about 3,000 meters. As soon as his voice stopped, the screen was enlarged and a red light spot flashed out. Is this the king level? Chen Fan frowned slightly. Still at the imperial level. We don't know either. Jia Yi spread his hands and said, so I want to invite you, the Thunder Martial Arts School, the HR Alliance and the Transcendent Gods of War from several major countries to go and investigate. Even if it is an emperor-level monster, we can all deal with it together. King-level monsters are probably around the first, second, and third levels of the planet, while the strength of the king-level monsters on the planet is similar to that of Hong and Lei Shen, and is undoubtedly the strength of the fourth, fifth, and sixth levels of the planet. Many transcendent war gods may not be able to win if they join forces, but escape is not a big problem. I'm okay, Chen Fan readily agreed. And this time, his communicator lit up again. Wang Tong, Inspector Chen, Li Yao is here, and he has made a breakthrough. Li Yao, Chen Fan's eyes narrowed, and his figure suddenly turned into a blue-gold illusion and came out. Walk. Jia Yi and Counselor Deng looked at each other and without any hesitation, they immediately rushed out of the large passenger plane and soared into the sky. Beings beyond the god of war can fly, but everyone's speed is different. So fast. When the two of them soared into the sky, it was obvious that they could only see Chen Fan's blurry light, and they quickly flew towards the Extreme Martial Arts Hall. Above the Extreme Martial Arts Gym Station, Li Yao was suspended in midair, and the light around him was vaguely distorted. His figure was sometimes blurry and sometimes clear, as if he was not in harmony with the space. Li Yao, this is where our Extreme Martial Arts Gym is located. If you dare to take action, are you seeking death? Wang Tong's strength is not as good as others, but his momentum is not weak and changeable. The four war gods were also in full preparedness, holding onto their weapons and ready to respond to Li Yao's attack at any time. Wang Tong, if I really do it, you will all die. Li Yao laughed ferociously, his eyes filled with murderous intent, and then he shouted, Chen Fan and I have a personal grudge, whoever interferes will die. The sound was like a loud bell, and it immediately spread throughout Kirishima. Hearing this, Wang Tong and others frowned slightly, and then they understood. After all, Li Yao was still afraid of Hong. If he can kill Chen Fan, even if Empress Hong Chu settles the score, he can still call it revenge for his only son. Even if there is a public trial, there is still a chance of survival. But if they attack Wang Tong, Zhang Feng and other gods of extreme martial arts, they will be hunted down by the entire God of War Palace. And this time, whoosh, a stream of green gold light pierced the long sky to the south, arriving rapidly, and the blurry shadows condensed instantly. Chen Fan. Li Yao looked at him coldly, his eyes flashing fiercely. You actually made a breakthrough too. Whizzing, whizzing. Following Li Yao's scolding, four figures flew over in succession. In addition to Jia Yi and Counselor Deng, Carol West and Far also flew over. Vulture Li Yao. Far looked at Li Yao, frowned and said, it is not easy to become a being that surpasses the god of war. Li Yao, I advise you to put down your hatred. He checked Chen Fan's information and naturally understood the grudge between Chen Fan and the vulture venomous scorpion couple. This sounds like he is helping Chen Fan, but in fact he is trying to find a way out for Li Yao. After all, Li Yao belongs to the Bolinas family, and becoming a being who transcends the god of war will undoubtedly enhance the strength of the HR alliance. The hatred of killing a son is irreconcilable. The black light on Li Yao's body was pulsating. He glanced coldly at Jia Yi and Counselor Deng behind Chen Fan and said, are you two going to intervene? Chen Fan. Counselor Deng looked at Chen Fan and shouted. You two don't need to help. Chen Fan glanced at Li Yao, then fell on Far and Carl C and said, it happened that the other two congressmen were also there. Counselor Jia suggested that we join forces to explore the bottom of the lake together. The two congressmen should think about it carefully. Hear the words. The existence of the four transcendent gods of war were all startled. Does Chen Fan not take Li Yao seriously at all? Chen Fan, you are too arrogant. Li Yao roared angrily, as golden light began to appear all over his body, and then his whole body was enveloped in a layer of golden light. Seeing this scene, the faces of the four transcendent gods of war showed expressions of surprise. Li Yao really has a mortal feud with Chen Fan, and he uses his original power as soon as he gets involved. As a planet-level powerhouse, Far knew exactly what Li Yao was doing. When he fought with Chen Fan, if he had used his original energy when he came up, he was confident that he could kill Chen Fan. Whoosh! Li Yao, whose whole body was covered in golden light, suddenly flashed as fast as an aurora. Innocent. Quote. Chen Fan was suspended in midair, facing Li Yao, who was coming towards him like a white rainbow piercing the sun. He raised his hand and shook it, and the red shadow appeared in his hand like a spiritual consciousness. Call. The red shadow waved, and the red light and shadow approached the speed of light. Under Chen Fan's wave, the red shadow erupted with terrifying force. The air immediately trembled with a sonic boom sound of boom boom boom, and then a red stream of light suddenly reflected in the sky. In the eyes of everyone. Comet hits the moon. The red streamer burst out at a speed that even exceeded the speed of light. Even a planet-level expert could not react at all. What's this? Red light instantly covered Li Yao's sight, and his mind was swallowed up by this stream of light before he even had time to think. Boom! Under the crushing force of the absolute power, the sharpness of the red shadow exerted terrifying momentum. The black god suit on Li Yao was torn apart, and Li Yao's entire body was torn into pieces, blood and flesh splashing in the sky. Whoosh! Almost in a breath, the black god suit healed again, leaving only the empty suit in midair. Immediately, Chen Fan put away his gun and raised his hand, casually throwing Li Yao's black god suit to Wang Tong. The latter just took the black god suit in a daze, with a stiff look on his face. No one expected that what they thought would be a big battle would end in just a few breaths. Moreover, Li Yao, a being who surpassed the god of war, couldn't take a shot from Chen Fan. By it, Carol West couldn't help but tremble, and his facial features were slightly distorted by fear. If Far hadn't been wise, he absolutely believed that his fate would not have been much better than that of Li Yao, and he would have been left with half a corpse at most. He's so strong that he even tore the black god's suit. Representative Fall was also frightened, and his voice was almost squeezed out of his throat. Blessed by the sages, we have another super strong person in Kyushu. Ha ha ha, so happy, so happy. Jia Yi and Counselor Deng were shocked, but at the same time they had a look of relief on their faces. No matter which force Chen Fan belongs to, his identity as a Kyushu native cannot be changed. Chen Fan already has planet-level third-level strength. Even if his physical strength explodes, it has reached a force of 1,000 tons. What's more, a comet attack on the moon with an explosive force of nearly 20,000 tons, let alone Li Yao, even if it is the number one person in the world, Hong Yi may not be able to resist. Inspector Chen, I have offended you many times before, please forgive me. Carol West bowed slightly and apologized profusely. Shall we discuss working together to explore the world under the lake? Far smiled awkwardly, and felt a thump in his heart, thankful that he had made a wise choice before. Good. Chen Fan nodded slightly. HR Alliance Station, inside a large passenger plane. This is the inspector of the Thunder Martial Arts Hall, Representative Amuhan. Far sent an invitation to the forces stationed in the Australian mainland. In addition to Chen Fan, Jia Yi and others, there are 7 MPs here. Haha, Inspector Chen, I have long admired your name. Amuhan grinned and winked at Chen Fan, saying hello in broken Kyushu dialect. When Li Yao came to kill him before, he happened to sneak into the bottom of the lake to investigate, so he didn't show up. Judging from the expression, it is obvious that he also knows the relationship between Chen Fan and Thor. Hello Inspector Chen, my name is Mika, from Eagle Country. A white woman bowed slightly. Even though she was a member of the Eagle Nation, she was extremely respectful to Chen Fan at this moment. No one here dared to think that he was Chen Fan's opponent when he killed the congressman in the black god suit with one blow. After a brief introduction, everyone sat down along a conference table. I believe that everyone has discovered the dangers at the bottom of the lake. Member Jia Yi suggested that we join forces to explore the world under the lake. Fal's eyes glanced at Amuhan and then fell on Mika. RHR Alliance and Extreme Martial Arts School are in favor of Jojo Kingdom's proposal. I have no opinion. Amuhan nodded and said, about 1,600 meters, there are 2 king-level monsters, one of which should be an intermediate king-level earth dragon. At least I am not my opponent Chao. 1,600 meters. Intermediate king level. Amuhan's words made other congressmen's expressions change slightly. They all have detectors for ancient civilization ruins. The energy spot at 1,600 meters is already very bright, but it is only very bright. If 1,600 meters is the middle-level king-level monster, then it is very likely that it will be an emperor-level monster. Sorry everyone. Mika refused. My strength is limited, so I won't get involved. All the major forces are stationed there to monitor the surrounding situation. It is too terrifying for Chen Fan to kill Li Yao with one shot. I guess this Mika is afraid that Chen Fan will go down to the world under the lake and break the covenant. Watching Mika say goodbye and leave, Jia Yi couldn't help but think. Dating back to before the Great Nirvana, the relationship between the Eagle Kingdom and the Kyushu Kingdom was not very good. The heart of a villain is only as good as the heart of a gentleman. Counselor Deng sneered and said, since the Eagle Kingdom has withdrawn, how about we join forces with the four parties? Good, we have no problem with that. Amuhan, Far and Kurolsi responded in unison. So, everyone, get ready and set off in 2 hours. Just as Jia Yi guessed, all forces had already set up monitoring equipment, and everything that happened around Kirishima was immediately reported to the top leaders of the forces. As for the Extreme Martial Arts Gym, Chen Fan is the top person in charge of mainland Australia. He did not nod, and Zhang Fang naturally did not upload the relevant video. Even so, under the developed network, Extreme Martial Arts Gym quickly received the news. Master 043, Vladimir, who was patrolling the world, first contacted Hong. Li Yao broke through and became a being beyond the god of war. He went to the Australian mainland to find trouble with Inspector Chen and was killed. Not surprisingly, send the relevant video. Hong was not surprised. From the moment he gave Chen Fan the red shadow, Hong believed that few of the congressmen were Chen Fan's opponents. Yes, Mao. After receiving the video, Hong was silent for a while after watching it, and then sighed for a long time. Thor's son-in-law is a bit unfathomable. He had also killed the congressman wearing the black god suit, and he also killed them with one blow. Even Thor can do it. But one of them is at the 6th level of the planet, and the other is at the 7th level of the planet. The gap in realm level is there. And what about Chen Fan? He is only a 3rd level planet, and he is a planet level powerhouse who has just broken through. In the Europa region, inside an ancient building. Click. Suddenly, there was a breaking sound of a teacup falling to the ground, which was as powerful as a being that surpassed the god of war. Yan Hai, who was facing the wind and calm in the sky, couldn't help but tremble his hands. In front of him, this was the scene of Chen Fan killing Li Yao. Under the black god suit, Li Yao was actually chopped into pieces. 10,000 tons of power. At this moment, Yan Hai's face turned pale, and he didn't know what to do. Belina's family, in the Spire Conference Hall. The 5 old men who represented the core of the highest power of the Belina's family all looked ashen. When the enemy is a little stronger, the background of such a big family may not be afraid. But when the enemy is as tall as a mountain, no matter how frustrated you are, you can only bow your head and admit defeat. My sister, Venina is a descendant of your lineage. Please give the order yourself. The silver-haired old man holding a cane sighed, let her disappear forever. They didn't dare to bet that Venina wouldn't be crazy enough to seek revenge on Chen Fan. Similarly, they cannot withstand the anger of a planet-level powerhouse. The best way is to make the problem disappear. Hongning Base City, Elite Training Camp. Yang Wei, who was running around for Chen Fan, was cursing. He was exhausted these past few days. The SS-level Blood Shadow War sword is indeed a good thing, but the better it is, the harder it is to sell. On the one hand, it is difficult to negotiate the price, and on the other hand, compared to knives, there are far fewer warriors who use swords. After all, what Thor created was the Ninefold Thunder Sword, not the Ninefold Thunder Sword. Not every warrior can master the power of force. Kai, drop. Single quote. At this time, Yang Hui's communicator lit up. Hello, Inspector Liu. Ah, the martial arts school wants to recycle SS-level swords. Okay, I'll send them over right away. 2 hours later, Chen Fan and his 6 planet-level experts flew together towards the middle of the lake. Whenever we encounter danger, we will help each other and hope that Inspector Chen will not care about the previous offenses. Far looked at Chen Fan, raised his hands and said. His original power was the power of fire, but he could hardly exert his power underwater. Rest assured. Chen Fan nodded. 6 rays of light and shadow suddenly fell, crashing into the bottom of the lake like 6 meteorites. The body was submerged in the water, and the resistance of the water flow immediately slowed down the speed of the 6 people. Chen Fan's eyes narrowed, and his mental power instantly rippled out. Now after the strength of his soul has been integrated again, the coverage area reaches a full 10,000 square meters. A moment, Chen Fan shook his hand, and the red shadow suddenly condensed into a bloody red light. Far and Carl C on the side were worried, he would not think. But before this idea could arise, the 5 of them suddenly noticed a huge black shadow rushing towards them in the water below. Everyone took a closer look and saw that it was a swordfish, at least 20 meters away, and several sizes larger than the high-ranking lord they had killed before. King level, several people thought immediately. Whoosh, Chen Fan's figure flashed under the water, sweeping out a white wave. At this moment, the red shadow in his hand slashed straight through, and the huge force blasted out the underwater vortex, and a huge suction force was rolled out from 100 meters around. Boom! With a muffled sound, everyone's eyes widened and they saw a large mass of blood spreading rapidly. A king-level monster was instantly killed. Before several people could be shocked, Chen Fan raised his hand to them. This is signaling everyone to retreat. Immediately, they saw Chen Fan retreat towards the lake with a whoosh. Upon seeing this, Amuhan, Jia Yi and Counselor Deng quickly retreated to the lake without any hesitation. Carl C glanced at Far, who nodded. When the two were about to retreat, a terrifying roar suddenly came from below the bottom of the lake. Almost at the same time, a huge tentacle swept toward them like lightning. Far and Carl C's expressions changed wildly, and they tried their best to escape. Boom! A figure rose into the sky first from the lake. It was Chen Fan who was holding the red shadow. At this moment, he was holding a gun in one hand, his eyes were like electricity and he was staring down, and the red light was gradually rising from all over his body. Between breaths, Amuhan, Jia Yi and Representative Deng also rushed out. What is that? I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.